Okay. Good evening. It is now 6 o'clock, and it is Tuesday, December 18th, 2018. I will open the Wellfleet Board of Select Persons meeting. And there is time for announcements, open sessions, and public comment, if any of the Select Board has public comment. Announcements? Yes, Kathleen?
I would like to announce that there's a constituent coffee with Representative Sarah Peak, Friday, December 21st, 1 to 2 p.m. at our very own beloved Flying Fish, and meet with Representative Peak, and learn about the carbon-free bill. That's it.
Did you say it was at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock?
1.
So at 12 o'clock, Sarah's going to be there to explain it, and at 1 o'clock, the man from, I know, I got two different announcements. So she's going to be there at 12 to explain things and have more discussion, and then at 1 o'clock, I don't remember the man's name, but he's going to come and explain him what he needs. So, thank you. Another thing to do. Any other announcements? Okay, any announcements or, from the audience? Chief?
Yes, just let everybody know that the Outer Cape Police Departments from Orleans to Provincetown, along with our local cab companies, will be partaking in Operation Safe Ride on New Year's Eve. This is a free ride home from a licensed liquor establishment until 2 o'clock in the morning. It could go to 4 o'clock if you have reservations. Wellfleet rides, please call 508-829-4222 and mention Safe Ride. We'll be posting more information on our Facebook page. It's like our 8th year of doing this, and hopefully we can get everybody home safely for the holiday.
Thank you. Important. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, so we're going to discuss the bike trail. This is not a public hearing on the bike trail. The town of Wellfleet is not in charge or building the bike trail. It is the state, the Department of Conservation and Recreation that's building it. And I have gotten from Peter and Rebecca Noble a number of everybody's comments and letters. But if you want to be more specific, you should be emailing them or writing them a letter if you don't feel satisfied. So this came about because Selectwoman Wilson wanted the board to write a letter together to state our support or lack of support for the bike trail. And a week ago, I mentioned that at our last meeting, and lo and behold, I didn't get anybody's comments. So I'm not sure if I take that as a letter as everybody's support of it, or everybody being busy, or whatever. So we'll start with the board, and you can give me your comments. We'll start with Helen, since she wanted to do that, and what your support is, what your lack of support is, or what exactly you wanted to say.
Well, the reason I thought we should discuss it as a group was because we had not done that since the meeting on October 22nd, when the agency, that's doing it, I can never remember the initials. I know I sound like an idiot, but I'm only partially an idiot. That agency came before the town and showed us what they were thinking of. And this board had not discussed it as a board since then. So I personally was thinking that we were going to put forward what we thought at this meeting together and listen to each other.
We are.
Given that we've had quite a lot of public input. And the first thing I want to say is this situation reminds me a little bit of what happened when the town highlighted to the Department of Transportation our situation at the intersection of roughly Main Street, that terrible intersection. And we said we need to do something there. And by the way, bicycles were something that needed help in that intersection too. So we threw that at the state, and we asked them, and lo and behold, they came back to us and said, this is all relevant, Janet. Don't worry, I'm getting to it.
I know.
Yeah. And said, hey, we heard what you said, but we kind of don't want to take you up on it. We want to say that you have to have a roundabout there. And of course, then we had a hearing with the state. We had a couple of meetings with them about that intersection. It's dragging out and dragging out. And the town said, here are all the reasons why a roundabout there isn't good. Well, this is, to my mind, a similar situation. We have more bicycles, that's good. And it needs to be addressed, and that's good. And the state has come, and before listening to suggestions from the town, has proposed something which, to my mind, mainly because of safety and efficiency, but mainly because of safety, does not work on this road at this time in the town, okay? And I have a couple of very specific thoughts about that, and I was hoping to hear what the board had to say, because we really needed to talk about it together before we decided if we wanted to send our point of view about it. And I want to remind the board, you know, this is a state thing, but it's going to take place in good part on our town's public ways, and we were very much the people that have say over that, okay? That's part of the reason we should be involved. I would like to read very quickly a letter that sums up really my point of view that came today from Martha Heavenor, who works for the Cape Cod Commission, is an avid bicyclist, and has ridden on these roads for years. And she's like a reasonable person. If you don't mind, can I read it very quickly? Do we have time for that?
Yes, but I also would like you to just make the points. But go ahead.
In the letter?
Go ahead, go.
Okay, my two main points are, we don't need a bigger parking lot in the site that was explored earlier. In that way, it's ecologically not a good idea, and the Conservation Commission has had some very specific thoughts about it. Okay, and they're going to, I think, hear, maybe they're done with it, I forget, but go to their minutes. They had problems with it, drainage and other problems. The other thing is, the idea of having a main way to get to the center of town and to access farther on roads towards Provincetown through Wellfleet that comes out mainly at not LeCount Hollow Road, but Long Pond, Cahoon Hollow Road, sorry, is a really big mistake. I think what we've got now is 4 different ways for people to come to Route 6 if they want to. And by the way, no direction from the state is going to prevent people from continuing to do that. We can't just say, hey, if you're on a bike, you have to use this road. That doesn't work. You can't do that. So we've got LeCount Hollow, Cahoon Hollow, Grosse Hill Road, and Gull Pond Road, all connected along the back shore, running from north to south by Ocean View Drive. And over the years, they work pretty well. No one of them should take most of the traffic. That's opinion number 1. Opinion number 2, if you want to access, if you're on a bike, whether you're in a group or just by yourself, and you want to access the center of town, you don't have to cross the highway. You can just go to Long Pond Road and go into the center of town carefully. The third thing that I feel is the most important, and this has come up with the shark situation and a number of other things. There are more bikes. That's good. There are bikes all over the world in cities. The bottom line is people in cars and people on bikes have to be careful with each other, and no amount of direction or work by the state or additional, bike paths is ever going to make it completely safe if people in cars and people in bikes don't really pay attention. And where I read in the last thing I want to say is, where I read in the PowerPoint presentation that was done on October 22nd, that they wanted to make no grades steeper than, 5%. I thought, what are you talking about? Hills
Handicap
are manageable.
accessible.
What?
They want to make it handicap
ADA.
accessible.
I understand that, but
Well,
yeah, hills are okay, and turning something, handicap accessible is important, but if you talk to athletes who may be handicapped, who use bicycles, I think that they might even be offended by that. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like
so that's,
5%, I don't
yep,
know. I'd have
point
to
of
hear
order
from
there.
them.
It's to make it ADA
I know, but
accessible. So
but-
that's the reason why you're not talking about athletes,
Off on an arc.
all parts,
handicapped athletes. You're talking about the elderly,
and I was a
whatever,
I was a
youngsters,
small
whatever.
child.
So,
I was
okay,
yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
that's the point of that, okay?
I got it. So, can I just read this quickly, or it's kind of long?
It is kind of long, and you already said you were going to read it, and
Yeah.
then you went on long.
Yeah, I did.
So-
But I think that
Madam
Go.
Chair?
I want to
Yes.
hear what the rest of us think.
Thank
Okay. Yes, Kathleen.
I don't know where to start there, Helen. You're a hard act to follow. Let's get back to the state. We went to the state after Miles Tibbetts was killed on the highway and asked them to do something about the lights at Main Street. We felt that if that kid had had a place to cross or a call button to change the lights, he would have crossed there and not crossed where he did. I hate to say this, but we waited and we waited and we waited, and the state came to us. What was their solution? A rotary. Ask every police officer and fire chief on the Lower Cape if a rotary was going to work for Wellfleet, and they're going to tell you no. It would not serve us. That's a lot to say in a very short period of time. So I'm going to get back to the point of this. The state has come to Wellfleet with a 2-mile bike extension. It's a very modest extension. I do not oppose the extension or the route. It's just 2 miles. What I do take, and I would like them to consider, is not using pavement through these back roads or in our woods, not clear-cutting and opening up canopies of trees and woods, and not building another parking lot off the highway, which I feel will only service Oysterfest when that weekend comes around. And we'll have people parking out on the highway and crossing the road to walk into town. Tell me that's not a safety issue. I think it is. The state bought Payne's Campground. They simply can build a parking lot up there if they want to put in extra parking for bikes on the property that they've already owned up there. And I'm going to ask that they not use asphalt. We don't need any paving here. We're an environmentally very sensitive area, a single source aquifer that we're flushing down the toilet here, people, because we don't have any wastewater treatment. So I don't want any more pavement in my town. That's what I have to say about this project.
Kathleen, sorry, Justina.
Well, I'm the clerk of the board. I will say we've gotten an enormous number of emails, but they mostly seem to be from people in the neighborhood, abutters of the trail. And I think we always have to ask ourselves if our private concerns are balanced with our duties as citizens to make the town better. The proposed project is a part of a wonderful vision by the state of a 70-mile shared use path network. It's been extensively studied by the Mass DOT and by highly qualified consultants. At every stage in the way, they've asked the community for comments. I'm not going to ask anybody in the audience to raise their hands if this is going on in their neighborhood, but I'm asking you to look into your conscience and think about your duties as citizens of the town, and think about making sure that you orient your perspective towards best for Wellfleet as the state comes to us with a terrific project.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the audience, but please, what?
Oh, I just wanted to say one more thing. I was waiting for you to say what you thought.
I'm going to.
Okay. Can I say one more
You
thing?
may.
Thank you. I would like to agree with everything that Kathleen said. Don't get me wrong, I think the 2-mile extension is excellent. But I want to remind the board that some of the letters we've got are not from NIMBYs, but in the case of Mr. Noble and Martha Heavenor, experienced bicyclists who have been using the road here for years, and I used to live with one myself, none of whom think that some of this proposal is a good idea, not because they're offended because it's in their neighborhood, but because they have been using the roads on bicycles in a serious way for years. And I really hope that we do get a way for people to cross the highway at that dangerous intersection with a, light button. I really agree with what Kathleen said.
Well, Janet, I have to reply to that. Excuse me, Madam Chair.
All right, go ahead.
Martha's a very good friend of mine. She's a triathlon athlete, and yes, she's an avid bicyclist. She does support the extension and the path that it's taking. She does not support another parking lot or paving that extension, or removing any trees or changing our landscape. But this is a short 2-mile run. It's very easy. State already owns this land, way to go. And Martha knows that. She knows that's a good egress.
Okay, so to make it clear to the audience, this is not about crossing Route 6. This is not about the light at Main Street, Commercial Street. This is not about the parking lot across the street. The state is doing this in steps, and this is very specifically ending at Route 6. So that to allay those fears of people just funneling out onto Route 6, it will not happen. There'll be some sort of, I don't know what it'll be, but obviously they're going to want you to stop before you get to Route 6. They're engineers, they're the state, they're very careful. So just that really isn't an issue. I know you still might think it is, but it really isn't part of the issue. I actually want to ask everybody here, how many people have been on the bike path from LeCount down to Orleans or Brewster? And have you walked it or biked it or do it often? And do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really nice. So there are some very nice things about the bike path, and the state's intention is to make it nice. We already have bicyclists. We already have families bicycling. They even use part of the bike path for some of the marathons with running. Families with strollers use it. Again, handicapped people use it. So it does play a good part, and we really have to kind of balance out how far we go with preventing it. My feelings are that I don't like the large parking lot there. I agree with paving. I think Martha Heavenor was the one who said you can have a bike trail without having blacktop, but that can be pretty darn hard too. I don't know. I mean, I've never been on a real bike trail where it's not paved. There's one issue, and Martha said this in her letter, and I'm not sure, about a shared use. And she said that where there's driveways, there's going to be people driving on it. Did you get that? Did you understand
Sure.
that?
No.
Yeah, I can answer that question for you. They want to build the path adjacent to her egress to her property. There are 4 houses on that short egress. And she's saying that she and the rest of the neighbors will allow the state to already use what's already there rather than building it out more.
Yeah.
That's the start of the extension is right at her home.
Yep. My thought with my understanding with the shared use is that you have it wide enough for bikes to go both
Yeah,
ways. It doesn't
exactly.
involve a
Yeah.
car. Okay, so it seemed in her letter that she was talking about cars driving on it, and I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I'll open it up to the public, and again, we have another meeting after this that you should stay for, but it's going to be long. So we have gotten a lot of letters, and to just make suggestions without going into the emotional or the values, because there's a lot of you here and it could take a long time. So I'll start with this lady. You have to go to the microphone, please, and identify yourself.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes, you can pull it down. You can just tip the microphone part down.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
there we go.
My name is Barbara Taylor. I live in Wellfleet. If we had known that you wanted comments from people during this week, you would have received them.
Okay, so I know you were at the meeting in October. So
Indeed.
just tell me your suggestions, or without the personal stuff, okay? Just tell me your suggestions or what you don't like. Because I've got to write.
don't believe what I
I have to
said-
write a letter. Somebody has to write a letter and get it in by Friday, so.
I do not believe that what I said was personal. I am against the rail trail because it is only the first piece of the state's flawed and dangerous plan, which includes a bike path along Route 6. Rather than tell you my thoughts, I want you to hear the voices of about a dozen of my neighbors who took the time this week to send me a note so I could tell you what they were thinking. Here is what they are concerned about: the speed at which this process is moving forward, the need for more community input from abutters and others who are directly impacted, that their valid concerns repeatedly have been given short shrift and brushed aside, that there are environmental impacts of building in our area that must be considered. There are risks to bikers and other trail users once they are on Route 6. And the addition of a new parking lot on Route 6 and the increased traffic congestion that all of this will cause. They also want town officials to do more research and reconsider the state's plan, to have full notice given to them and more discussions for people in Wellfleet. They want to stop the extension to Route 6, and they don't want the Route 6 bike path. They want to find a safer and more scenic route for bikers and for walkers, such as leveraging existing scenic back roads. You might ask yourself, why did I get comments from more than 10 people in my neighborhood, most of whom are not abutters? I'm in the Cahoon Hollow neighborhood up to Major Doan Road. We get comments because our neighborhood knows more about the state's plan and the previous bike plans than any other neighborhood in Wellfleet. Because nearly 3 years ago, we initiated a community effort to keep each other fully informed. During those 3 years, we have given a great deal of thought to bike plans and have researched the impacts of them. We have a system of information flow, and I serve as the conduit for that flow. If neighbors see any information, any report, any article in the newspaper, a notice of a meeting, it comes to me and it goes out to them. Meeting notes are summarized and reports are summarized, and it's distributed. We are informed and we are involved. Finally, and this is personal, a member of the Select Board recently had a letter published erroneously criticizing my views and calling me out by name. While I do not take those matters lightly, I would not have responded had it not been brought up at the last Select Board meeting and become part of the permanent public record. I would like to state publicly, I was not mistaken at all that the state's plan has had so little transparency, and I am providing information to each member of the Select Board to prove that.
Thank you. If you want to give your letter to the secretary, she could file that away.
Janet, do we get to reply?
No, it's not necessary. Mr. Oliver?
Thank you. I'm not directing this towards you.
Thank you.
I obviously need to direct this towards the state, but as an avid bicyclist and business owner, I am astounded that this would even be considered. Adding more bicyclists and cars to the most congested and arguably dangerous part of Route 6 in Wellfleet makes no sense. Designating the breakdown lane as a bike lane is not a solution. Extending the bike trail from South Wellfleet to Provincetown would have a tremendous effect for the Lower Cape and would be another terrific off-season attraction. While the Lower Cape needs the bike trail extended to Provincetown, it should not be done using Route 6. Obviously, this would defeat the purpose of a bike trail. Why not end it for now where the railroad bed meets Old County Road, which would be right out here, instead of taking it down to the highway? From this point, in my opinion, the trail should follow the power lines until we get to Truro. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify again that this is not about Route 6. This is not about Route 6 all the way to Provincetown. There are other plans, hopefully. There's other, if you were at the October meeting, they actually suggested, but there's no money, there's no nothing, that they could even put a bridge. People have wanted a bridge over Route 6. So let's just not go there. Tonight, we're not going into bicycles in a breakdown lane on Route 6. It's just about ending at Route 6, okay? Barbara had her hand up.
I'm Barbara Boone, and I live here in Wellfleet. And I'm not an abutter, I am a bicyclist. And I think it is very difficult for us to consider this extension without considering where it ends. Because it does end at Route 6, and I rode this the other day. I have a fat bike and rode it, had on a big orange backpack and reflective gear. And the point being is when you get to Route 6, no one is just going to say, just like they do now, where it ends now, no one just goes, oh, let's turn around. They go to the PB. They go to the Blue Willow. They go somewhere else because it is a destination. You don't just go, oh, I hit the end, I turn around, I go back. I've never done that, even when I go in the other direction. So I think to ask us to not consider where this will eventually go is difficult for people to accept. Because I got to the end of it, I got to Route 6, and I was looking around at where the parking lot was going to be, and I totally agree that it shouldn't be there, and I think everybody agrees with that. But I went right, and on the side of Route 6, because I was actually trying to head toward work, and I almost got hit by somebody turning into the Cumberland Farms. And like I said, I was on a big, slow, fat bike in December, orange backpack on, and I'm not unique in that. And so I just want to say that while I love the idea of extending a bike path, and I love the idea of us trying to work with the state, I think they do need to listen, in this case, to abutters who are witnesses to that area, especially in the summertime, especially, considering traffic and bicyclists that are already there.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Who had their hand up first? You can go.
I appreciate the idea.
Please state your
I'm
name.
sorry. Carol Marr. I live on Howard Court. I am not an abutter, but I do live adjacent to this. First, I'd like to comment that to even hint that abutters or people adjacent to the trail are acting in their self-interest is counterproductive to any kind of community spirit involved in considering what's best for the town of Wellfleet. Just because my street happens to go into the bike path's location does not mean I'm not looking at the entirety of what is good for the town of Wellfleet. If the board were to read the supplemental information provided by Brian Madden to the Environmental Agency, it is on record. And in that, he is quoted as saying that the only reason for the 2-mile stretch is so they can get to Route 6. DCR has had its eyes on a connected path going up and down the Cape. That is their prize. This small section, 2.5 miles, is pretty benign. And we can make, it is a wonderful idea. I walk that path almost on a daily basis. I think very few people would be opposed to that 2.5 miles. And as Barbara just so eloquently said, the problem is that DCR has admitted the only reason for it is to get to Route 6, and then they get their prize. They're using Wellfleet as their gateway to their major project. We can't separate the two. And if I have a position for the Select Board, it is that you strongly urge both DCR, DOT, the entire state organization, consider these projects concurrently. Get them permitted together. Look at the issues together. Only then will you have what is best for Wellfleet. To separate the two and to naively think that somehow the second part is going to stop is just ill-advised at this point, when DCR has been pretty clear on what their intent is for this first section. That's the reason that the parking lot is there. And in terms of what's good for Wellfleet, as I read that supplemental environmental information, if I read it correctly, they're willing to wipe out the box turtle population in my neighborhood, and that they're going to do that and mitigate it by donating to the Nature Conservancy so they can build a box turtle habitat somewhere else, not in Wellfleet. There are things in that report that need to be understood, what the implications are for the whole of Wellfleet, not just for those of us who live near the bike trail.
Thank you. Rebecca, only if you have something new to say, because yeah.
I'm Rebecca Noble, and you mentioned at the beginning that you had till Friday to write something, and I'm just curious if you could elaborate who you're writing to.
DCR.
DCR. So there is then the idea that
They've already extended the,
that's the MIPA site visit review comments.
the what?
MIPA site visit review comments. It's not DCR comments. It's for
Whatever.
the permit for the take
Whatever.
of the
I mean,
turtles.
I've got it written down, yeah.
So the DCR comments have closed.
There's
So-
an extension.
That was for the MIPA, for the environmental site review.
Okay,
They extended because they would like to know about the alternatives.
right, okay.
So I was just curious, so you're going to write to DCR with
I don't
an
know.
opinion?
I mean, to be honest, I don't really have time. I wanted to have it done by now, so I'm not really sure how this whole thing is going to work. So,
I'm just
not
curious how our
committed to
comments
anything.
will be used.
If
the
anything,
board.
I'll copy them and send them in, everybody's comments in, that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, this lady in front.
My name is Catherine Letourneau. I live at Governor Frost Drive. And I think from what I'm hearing from a lot of people is there really are the three major issues to the bike path are the safety issue, which I think the board is pretty much on top of understanding. The second is the environmental piece. And people's comments are right. This is a very, and Kathleen, you're right too, a very environmentally sensitive area. We fought NSTAR on their spraying and all of that. We need to continually look at the impact of anything that is done on in our town, on our land, on our resources, on our wildlife, on our everything. That I think maybe, myself included, that we need to make ourselves a little bit more familiar with any studies that have come out on that. The third thing is, and Justina, I know you did not mean to insult the butters when you said what you said. I think you're right in terms of we all have to be very careful that anything we do in this town has to be for the good of the town. I forget who the person was who wrote a book a very long time ago about progress coming to Wellfleet and how we continue to keep the town viable while still continuing it as Wellfleet as we know it, and the reason we all came to live here. I am one of the abutters, Justina, and I have no problem with the bike trail. I am not opposed to a bike trail whatsoever as long as it's safe and environmentally conscious. What I am concerned about, and I think I've heard other people say it, is that the abutters' concerns it has felt to us as if we've been poo-pooed, dismissed, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to be a great bike path. And it very well may be, but my house is like directly I look at the bike path. I could shake your hand as you go by. I would like to know that the selectmen are supporting us as citizens, as part of this community, and to help us to work with DCR to ensure that they listen to our comments, to ensure that if there are alternatives, if that's where the bike path is going, if there are alternatives to go around the abutters in some manner, shape, or form. There's nothing wrong with a few winding paths for a bike path. It's more fun, in fact, if you bicycle. So I would just like the support of the selectmen in helping us to ensure that DCR listens to us and doesn't just shut us down. Thank you for
Thank
listening.
you. So, the Board of Selectmen always listens to everyone. We just always do, or at least I do. I can't speak for anyone else.
Janet,
And
can I
of course, it's really important. Another thing to clarify with the way the bike path is going is because the state owns the right-of-way or has purchased the land that is the right-of-way that is the old railroad bed. So that's pretty much where it has to go. They can't veer off, they can't go, especially if you lived on that railroad bed, you would know that the terrain goes down, goes up, goes over. So that is the reason why the bike path is the path that they've chosen. Okay, they'd have to start buying land. And we really have to wrap this up because we have a budget meeting. And just the fact that this is our second meeting talking about this in the last 2 weeks somewhat, you should know that that's why we're doing this tonight, is because we do hear what you want to say. And I think you wrote a letter, right? Did you? I recognize your name. You didn't write a letter? Okay. Or an email or something, because I remember your name. I can see it spelled. So we really do take all of it into consideration. That's why I'm writing all these notes down, to see what people's concerns are. So I will let Mr. Harold go, but please keep it short. And again, I want to express to you guys, not your emotional value about, you're a butter, or you're going to be this or that. This is like for me to say, this is what our concerns are. We don't like pavement. We don't want it too wide. Safety, what's safety? We want a stop sign. We want barricades. I don't care, I'm making all that up. But I need specific suggestions or specific concerns. That's what I wanted specifics for. Go ahead. No,
Does
and
this
then you're going to be the last person, Brent, because we really have to move on. We have a whole budget meeting, so.
Does this work, this one?
Yes, it is. You're on.
All right.
Yep. State
Brent
your name.
Harold.
Yep.
I am profoundly not in a butter, nowhere close to it. And I have biked and walked and run the trail for decades. And I like the bike trail that's there. I know people have said this, but then the board has come back saying that we can't make the point that, in fact, this is not just about the extension. That it naturally is part of a plan, as the state itself has said, to get people onto a different way of being on Route 6 all the way to P-Town. So if you're looking for something convenient to say to defend the town, and I hope you will be taking that attitude, the Cape Cod Commission had this 100-page study of this whole thing, and at the end of the 100 pages, they conclude they drew a circle around the area, the extension, and the part of Route 6, including the intersection with Main Street, saying this is an area of concern, further study is needed. The Cape Cod Commission and nobody else has ever, as far as I know, said, all right, we've studied this, we've come up with a grand new thing. The area of concern is exactly what's being proposed here. There's no alternative plan that someone thought of. They looked at that plan and said, this is an area of concern. It's dangerous because of curb cuts. So if you're looking for something convenient, say, ask them, say, look at the Cape Cod Commission, look at that circle, area of concern. So that's what that's it. That would be an easy way for you.
All right, thank you. So I really have to wrap it up. I really do. We've got a whole meeting tonight. Is it time?
I would greatly like to hear from Mr. Noble, who has
Okay.
enormous standing.
He does. He's also written enormous letters, and he's spoken last week, but go ahead. State your name, please, Peter.
I'm Peter Noble. I own Idle Times Bike Shop. We do business in the community.
Oh, okay.
Our customers use the bike path all the time. We look forward to the extension of the bike path. I think it's a great idea. It's a business opportunity for us. I use the bike path. My family uses the bike path. And the extension is exciting. We're also abutters. So as you can imagine, we've been accused of all of the typical NIMBY stuff that you can imagine being accused of. But we do search our, consciences all the time, and we try to think of the public safety. And back in 2016, when there was an extension looked at and a rerouting of traffic maybe through Cahoon Hollow Road to the light, I wrote to the select board and opposed that then. And I oppose the extension to Route 6 and the terminus at Route 6 now because of the idea of a multi-use trail down Route 6, which is what the DCR uses to sell this program with. Their October 22nd presentation, they alluded to the DOT's commitment in principle to the multi-use lane, which is a selling point for them. They again raised that at the site visit for the MIPA review, and it's on their printed materials for the 22nd public meeting that they had, the hearing. So they themselves use it as a selling point for ending at Route 6. So it seems fair that you could also consider that when you give your comments to the DCR back, that multi-use lane, which is only agreed to in principle by the DOT. And if you look at the letter from Brian Madden from the MIPA review, he states in the letter that it's less than 25% planned, that it's not a foregone conclusion that it'll ever be developed. It requires, I think, the cooperation of people who own curb cuts along the way. And then, in a best case scenario, even if it were developed, it's a stupid idea. I've been hit 5 times riding my bicycle to and from work when I used to live in South Orleans, and I would ride to Eastham to work at Idle Times Bike Shop before I was the owner of that business. Every time I've been hit by people entering or leaving curb cuts, either on the road or near the bike path, once on the highway, once on Main Street in Wellfleet in 1997, 1998, I was hit. And this is where you're proposing to direct traffic that leaves the bike path, is supposed to travel down the highway, is supposed to enter Wellfleet via Main Street. I was hit, I had a head injury, a serious head injury. I was hit directly across from what's now the Wicked Oyster. It was, I think, the Oyster House at that point. It was the owner of the resident leaving his property. He couldn't see me. He has a hedge there. There's no shoulder. It's dangerous. It's a terrible idea to direct family cycling traffic down that road. I don't know how you ever propose to have it improved. I believe that's the town's right-of-way and property at that point. Maybe you have an idea, but it's extremely dangerous. And even if you do get the multi-use lane to get to it, it's a bad idea. You have a pre-existing bridge at Long Pond Road. I've said it over and over again. There must be some other way to get to that. Why isn't it considered? Why are we being given this particular plan as the only alternative? The DCR owns the right-of-way. They own the land to the highway. It doesn't mean that they have to develop it all. They could stop simply at Old County Road, and then they could work on another phase of development to go north from there somehow, which would be a superior and safer way, better for the user's experience, safer for cyclists, better for traffic, gives you access to town, gives you access eventually further down the highway to the multi-use trail that the state wants to develop, the DOT wants to develop off the highway at that point, where there's more room to do it, whether you agree with that or not, at least gives you that opportunity. The state, the DCR, does cooperate and does actually get access to land that's not theirs to develop the bike path. Historically, I believe the Chatham Spur, a lot of the land on the Chatham Spur is not state property, and they had to cooperate with the town to do that. The proposed development on their long-term development of the bike path through Barnstable and Sandwich, I think, includes cooperation with the utility to use the gas pipeline right-of-way between the service road and Route 6. So there's plenty of precedent for opportunity for the DCR to be more creative and to work a little harder and maybe take a little longer and spend a little more money, but to do a better job to give us a safer alternative. So please stop the bike path at Old County, and please don't make a parking lot, which is another form of a road, to bring that bicycle traffic to the highway. You can gate it, you can put a fence, but cyclists will walk around it like they do now to the N-Star or Eversource fence at the
Okay, yeah, good.
power
So I
line.
also want to clarify that we really can't stop it. They own the land and
Oh, I understand
everything.
that you can't stop it, but
So
you
we
can write
make
an
our
intelligent letter
suggestions.
that states a
Right,
clear
so we can
opinion.
make our statements, but we can't outright stop it.
Right, so there-
Okay, good. So
But there
we-
are a few red herrings that fly around when you make a statement, and one of them is that you're dealing with the butters who suffer from NIMBY. Of course we do.
Okay,
but we
not
also have-
everybody said
But we
that,
also
you
have
know.
a clear view
Yeah.
of what the plan is and what its shortcomings are.
Yeah. So I want
we
to
express
state
our
too,
shortcomings.
I border the bike path.
Of course you
okay?
do.
So, yeah, okay. So we really have to move on. I hear you, you've written excellent letters, you've written good points.
Please make a clear statement of what the alternatives might be.
That's what, yes, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to say anything? Okay, good. So
Can I
is,
respond? Can I respond?
no.
2 minutes?
I want to see if Janet Lowenstein's here. She was here. Is she still here?
I don't know.
Did she leave totally?
But Janet,
No, we're not, again, this is,
what's our plan?
that's what I want to go into. I don't want to go into responding. We have to go into what our plan is. I have no idea what our plan is.
So my suggestion is this: we've listened, and I want to remind everybody that when this town stood up on its hind legs about the roundabout, they changed.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. I feel that everything that Peter said, what Kathleen said, I really agree with. There are things about this
Okay,
that,
so what do you want to do?
I
I
would
don't want
like
to start
to
going over it all again.
yeah,
We've
I
been
would
doing
like
this.
to agree quickly on some points and send a brief, simple letter giving input about the parking lot.
Okay, so do you want to go over those points?
Well, and I would like to respond.
What do you want to respond to?
Comments from Barbara Taylor.
No,
and-
no. It's doesn't matter. We really have to talk about what we're planning on doing, okay?
Here are the points that
Okay.
I've,
If I can make a point of interest before you go further, keep in mind the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, their time for comments is closed. So we're not commenting on them. We're only commenting on the environmental
right,
impact
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the project
Yeah.
at this point. That's all that's been extended. That comment period is for MIPA. So it has nothing to do with whether you
Design.
like the project
Yeah.
here or you like it there, unless it has a different environmental impact.
Only because Janet Lowenstein isn't here. What? I know, and I
I'm just
like
wondering,
you.
since I know where the DCR comments closed, and the MEPA is not the place to do this because that's only for environmental. But if you guys write a letter, I will get it out there. I
So,
will
okay.
hand it to Dan Driscoll.
I know. Getting it out isn't the hard part. So Helen, what do you propose?
I propose that we go over
Okay, so-
quickly about the parking lot. I agree with having the parking lot at the state's property at Paynes, that it not be paved.
So did you read why they're not having it there?
I did, but I disagree with it. And I also think that in a separate note, well, you know, we can all write in as individuals, but we have
I think
not.
that's what we're going to have to do, to be honest. I don't know how we're going to agree on different points
Okay,
tonight,
so what do we think about sending in a comment about the parking lot and how it should be paved?
Well, I had a very wise person suggest that they do it out here on Old County Road, right, where there's already, before you get here. But then we're going to hear from all the Old County Road people complaining.
I'm not sure that we need another parking lot.
Okay, so this is why it's really difficult to debate this, and I'm not sure how we're going to solve it tonight. We're behind
Well,
time.
maybe we can. But the point is, we have sat at this table together and heard together comments specifically addressed to this issue. And if we don't
Okay.
want to weigh in as a board, I get that, but I
Okay.
think we should.
So we'll start with the parking lot. Who agrees that the parking lot is fine the way it is, should be smaller, or shouldn't be there?
I don't want to see it off the highway. My preference would be to put it up on, at the campground. I don't want to involve residents
Okay.
on Old County Road with a parking lot. You know, the state owns the campground, there's parking already up there.
Okay,
So that's where I'd like to see it.
Justina?
Well, it was interesting to hear from the audience. I apologize if I upset people by bringing up the abutter comment. It's just a useful filter for us, for information. So I think good points were raised tonight. I don't have a specific stance.
Helen, what's your feeling on the parking lot?
I agree with Kathleen, and I think the other parking lot meets a lot of needs as it is, the one near LeCount Hollow. And further, I would like, environmentally, I feel that we have a kind of good spread with people coming across the various access to the center of town and parking there and using what's in the center of town, or using, you know, restaurants that are at the places where those various roads come onto Route 6. And environmentally, why pave more? Why destroy more habitat? Why, you know, spread out more than we have to when we have a state property at Payne's Campground now, bless their hearts, I'm glad about that. And we have the little parking lot at LeCount Hollow, you know, with.
Okay, so you don't have to, don't go in, we don't have time to start going into details, so you already said about the parking lot. Okay, what else do you want to vote on? Do you want to, what else?
Don't cut trees.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that? Or weigh their vote?
Can I just go back to parking for a minute?
So I'm sorry, but we're just really
Okay.
going to have to do this a whole nother time. I mean, we're supposed to have the Finance Committee here by 7.
Okay, I don't know how you want to do this, but if you want our comments to formulate a letter or not want our comments, but, you know,
What's the deadline?
if I want to get back to parking just for 2 seconds, you know,
Go ahead.
I'm not about creating more parking. I'm not about creating more
Okay.
paving.
So-
So if we can work with what we have, that'd be great. But if we can't, they should look someplace else.
So you're not for it at the campground now?
I am
You're for it not
at the
having it at all?
campground. I just don't want to build out another one. I want to work with what we already have.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And Helen's saying don't cut trees or minimize it, what?
And I'm saying the same thing that Kathleen's saying,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay, what are some other concerns?
What studies are due from the state?
Endangered species.
And when's the letter due?
I don't know. It's the
26th
26th, so
of
next
December.
Wednesday.
So Janet, my rationale to add to the reasoning about no more parking lots is what I was trying to say about the fact that people on bicycles will go to various parking lots.
So
For restaurants already.
we're wrapping it up, hon. We are moving on to the points we want to make in this
That's
letter.
what I just said.
So what,
In other words, we have a lot of places where people take their
I'm
bikes
causing more
and
trouble.
park that exist, not just the official one like the one at LeCount Hollow, not a potential one like at Payne's Campground, but all the different places people end up on their bikes all along throughout Wellfleet. These exist already, and we don't need to, you know, destroy environment, habitat, natural, scenic, you know, areas
okay, got it,
to
got it.
augment that.
Okay, what else? What else on your list?
That's the main thing for this particular piece of input because of what Dan just highlighted.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I am concerned that this was extensively studied by the state from highly qualified consultants. I heard from the audience that you're here because you know the neighborhood better than any outside consultant can, and I agree. But the state really has gone through an extensive process, and I think we should be careful about how we comment. They're not just shooting from the hip here. I asked my tactless comment about abutters because I'm the clerk and I see the emails, and I really was just asking the audience to help us out here by separating out emotion from logic. And I think to disagree with the state, we really be very, very careful that we're honor the hard work and professional expertise that's gone into their project.
I just want to make one more comment, Janet. quick.
Okay.
I want to assure the audience and all of you that wrote letters that it's a very, very difficult responsibility to sit as a member of the Select Board and know that we are getting more and more and more people here every single year. And yet we don't have an infrastructure to support the population that is traveling our roads. I understand that. I've lived here all my life. Having said that, we have a responsibility to get people that visit here, that want to recreate here, use our beaches, use our roads. We have a responsibility to keep them safe. That is the utmost concern to the Board of Selectmen. So I assure you that I take this very, very seriously. I also want to impart that the state does own this land, and they have done due diligence and will continue to do so, and we will figure this out together, I hope. Thank you.
So, Mr. Hort, do you have any suggestions as to how we can handle this administratively?
I would suggest that each of you write your own letter.
I'm thinking we have
with
to do that
comments.
too. That's exactly what I think. And
Well,
if,
some of them are similar. I think, a lot of
There's
you have
distinct-
different emphasis, which,
so I assure you, and again, this is really about the environment, not about the whole program. If each one of you wants to, get your letter in to Dan. So it really is, I mean, just reading this, I'm not going to read all this until Friday, There's a lot of other things I have to do. But I will forward all these in a packet to the powers that be. So if the three of you, and myself included, want to write a letter and want to be included in the Wellfleet packet, then get it as soon as possible with
Gotcha.
all your ideas, okay? Does that sound good?
Yes.
Does
Sounds
that
good.
sound good, Helen?
Yeah, it's.
Good. Okay, thank you. Good is good.
Um,
Write a letter. That's all we have to do, okay?
Yeah, I just
hard.
have to,
It's
this
hard,
is
yeah.
a healthy process we have here, and we are supposed to get back to the state. You see, that's what we're doing. And I disagree respectfully with Justina, because we have seen again and again the state, and the state comes to us legally to find out what we think, and it just happened, with a roundabout.
So we're
They
gonna.
were wrong.
So write your suggestions. We send them all up as a cohesive package, a supportive package, and I'm sure they will listen to it, okay? We'll do the alternative routes. This is why I wanted a list. I wanted a list, so that they can look and say, that they can see bullet points. So that's what I want. Okay. No, Peter, no. You're going to stay here until 10 o'clock tonight with us?
Short and sweet,
You're going to stay here till 10 o'clock with us?
short and sweet.
Are you going to stay?
Why don't you let him talk at the end of after we finish budget?
Peter Noble making one more comment.
You may.
And it's just to address what Justina said, and that's if you listen to today's broadcast of The Point on NPR, you'll hear that I addressed a question specifically to a DOT rep who works on safe roads, and that's his thing. And I asked him specifically about what the DOT thinks of the bike path dumping onto the highway with the new extension. And he said, we're not sure what to do with that. That's going to be a problem. We need to work that out.
Yeah, and
So
they
they're not
will.
as well
And they will.
informed on what's going to happen as a consequence of this development as you might suggest.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Department of
No,
Public
yes.
Works, you're going to be up, if you want to go and have a seat. so-
Okay.
So everybody will see.
So wait, I wanted to have things set up differently, so, okay. All right.
Everybody's going?
Yeah, can
Yeah,
we ask
yeah.
them not to talk?
Janet, do you want the department
Yes, please
here?
come up, please
Yeah.
come up, yeah.
May we ask people to leave and not talk so that we can hear you, so we can get on with the rest of the meeting, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna get hate mail.
So, Mr. Wallace, are you representing the Finance Committee? Kinda? You certainly. Do you want, so, it's whatever you want to do, but if you wanted to come up and at least be closer so you could help us weigh in on what the Finance Committee, I was always told, I always thought that the Finance Committee, came. I understand that they don't want to come, I'm not sure why, but we do need your input. You are a big, important committee, and it's good to have your input.
Janet, is Ms. Lowenstein out in the hall?
I have no idea, she should know.
Is Ms. Lowenstein out there, Janet?
They will be holding a FinCom meeting separately, and having the department heads to come in, if they were able to make it, but I believe that's what she mentioned to me.
Yeah, okay. So this is where I say that I think it would be really important for, that's really great. So to the Finance Committee, this is kind of a tradition where the Finance Committee usually comes with the Select Board and we talk with the department heads together. And I think it's important for the Finance Committee to know that we are videotaped and the town people, can hear what's going on and what the Finance Committee has to say. You guys don't videotape your meetings. Yeah, well, it would be really nice to let people know ahead of time what's going on, and if they have questions, they could come to your meetings, they could come to our meetings, and it gives them a heads up for town meeting. It's a good opportunity. So, yeah,
Janet, may I say something?
yes.
I'd just like to say it's not the first time that the Finance Committee and the Select Board have not been on the same page. But it would have been nice to have seen them at this meeting, because we really need to hear from them with regard to these budgets. So,
Communication is important.
Madam Chair?
Maybe they're listening. Okay. Yes, Justina.
Just to quickly add, this means that the back and forth between finance and the select board will happen at town meeting. And there's a lot that happens in dialogue, and so it's a change in the process that the select board wasn't notified of, and, yeah.
Janet?
Yes.
Um,
I'm really surprised
It's-
everybody has an opinion.
It's also, well, you had an opinion, but it's also very inefficient for the department heads to have to go to two separate meetings. And this way, to sort of tag on to what has already been said, I don't get to hear the questions that the FinCom will ask the department heads unless I go to that meeting in the tiny little room here at the COA. So that's another meeting for me. I know I'm whiny, but I wish that this hadn't happened this year. I think it's regrettable and inefficient.
I agree. And in a time when we're all trying to be more transparent and more communicative, this doesn't work.
Well, I think there was two people that were going to be out of town. And so
Can you talk into the mic, please?
You can't hear me?
No,
The TV people
No.
can't hear you.
yeah. Mr. Wallace said there were two people on the FinCom who were going to be out of town. Well, we could have scheduled at everybody's convenience, as far as I'm concerned. In other words, we should meet the FinCom halfway. It's not like we're the high and mighty. So I really appreciate that at least one person has shown up.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll get going with the Department of Public Works.
Okay.
Brief explanation, comments,
Sure.
what you like, what you need, what's not working, new projects.
Well, I have 6 budgets to go over. I'm beginning with I don't know if we have them in the same order, Dan, or if they
Yes.
have them in the same order?
They all should be in the same order.
Beginning with 417 DPW facilities. This is the budget that, at least in part, helps us maintain 7 primary buildings, 8 secondary buildings, and a number of beach and seasonal locations.
Mark, forgive me, can I just find you in the book
Sure.
first? Yeah, where is it?
It's under Public Works, and they're talking about the first budget, 417 facilities, under Public Works.
Public Works 1.
I'm
It's in
looking
the
for
middle of the book.
middle of the book. Sorry, we got a wonderful budget book, but it's a little,
Keep looking for it.
yeah, did you find it?
Yeah,
So what page is it?
Public Works.
it's not,
Do you not have your
Public,
funny
ah,
tabs?
Public Works, sorry, yeah, okay, thank you. This is embarrassing. Okay, hi.
Okay, so 417 facilities, there was a slight increase in that budget of $6,350, mainly due to an increase in electricity. However, the good news out of that budget, well, I'll briefly explain that there is an anticipated increased use of electricity in the new police station. However, if you will notice on line B3, fuel oil, heating oil, over the past few years has gone down by $26,000. So between that and the DPW facility converting to propane, Town Hall converting to propane, thanks to the Green Communities Act, of which we received the benefit of grants of up to $200,000 for those conversions. We were able to achieve those conversions to propane, which of course is much cleaner also. So, again, the budget's $340,950, and which represents an increase of $6,350. And just let me know if you have any questions, otherwise I'll just go on to the
Yeah.
420.
Quick question.
Sure.
You know, this is, I'm always the one that says, what the hell does this, what on earth does this line item mean? What's a cleaning perm?
Well, well, it's a little misleading. There's a company called Cleaning, it's Perfect Cleaning, actually. They
just do
clean
this
the beach bathrooms. We put that out to
So
bid every year.
That's, the perm is just the name of the company?
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least it was that last year.
Okay.
420 operating budget. This is the budget that oversees at the least 45 pieces of either small equipment and rolling stock between the transfer station, the DPW, and the fire department, among some other incidental things such as, even as small as postage even. But I'm just addressing the operating expenses portion of this budget, $149,550 that you'll see there under total operating. So that represents a figure that's been level funded from last year. So we do not have any increases in that budget. Specifically in that budget, if you look, without jumping around, at the risk of jumping around too much, if line B1, line B2, line B4, and line B12, those are the main lines that are used for maintenance, repair, and supplies. So some of those items you'll see where some of those lines didn't get used to a higher degree than other lines. So it's sort of a mix and match. So what I do is total up those 4 lines and come to a reasonable amount for each total line. I know that just didn't make any sense, but I gave it a shot, didn't I?
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a level funded line there, and those are the 4 lines that are mainly used for maintenance, repair, and supplies. And it was level funded. Next one is 422 highways. This is the line that's used for various types of different road maintenance, both on some paved roads, public dirt roads, parking lots, things as small as drainage supplies, catch basins, those sort of supplies. Within that budget is also an amount of $50,400, which is the town's supplemental amount towards Chapter 90 funding. Currently, we get around anywhere between $260,000 to $300,000 annual supplement from Chapter 90, the state cherry sheet. So we were one of the few towns that solely survived just on Chapter 90 funding. So a couple years ago, we kind of inputted an extra $50,000 as the town supplement, because that amount was not going up for a relative amount for a period of about 3 years. They're now looking at that again, so I expect to see increases amount of Chapter 90 funding coming. And it's a good thing, because I know when I started working for the town, asphalt was $29 a ton. It's now $170 a ton. So, and that's because due to the price of fuel oil, et cetera. So, but in any case, that budget has also been level funded. Next budget is snow removal, 423. That has been level funded. That's in a budget that we level fund for usually 4 to 5 years. Sometimes I will go back if 4 or 5 years go by, and I'll come up with an average out 5 years, take out the high, take out the low, and then come out with an average budget number for that budget to readjust. That is, however, the only budget that we are legally allowed to deficit spend, simply because of you never know what you're going to have for storms and snow and that type of thing.
Janet, I have a question.
Are you done with this section, kind of?
Sure.
I have a question on the snow removal thing.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mark. First of all, going back another budget or two, I understood it completely. You did very well with that. Second, does the state give us anything if we do go into deficit spending?
No.
On snow plowing? Can we get anything through the state?
No, we do not.
Okay, I didn't know
Have to
that.
go back to town meeting to appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Janet?
So this isn't about the budget, but it's just about getting ready for snow. Will you be giving us or making it available to the public what roads you're going to plow, what roads you can't plow, and update it? And any other comment you might have on that?
Sure, that has been updated. It's
Okay.
currently on the website
Okay.
right now, so all the roads all the paved private roads that we have inspected and are approved are on that list on the website.
Good, thank you. Helen?
Yes, for our newest member, and also because it's always good to put it out there when we look at this part of your budget. Through you to the town administrator, can you run it by us again about why we have to have a certain amount in our snow budget and how you can't go below it? It's not as flexible as other line items, because
The state will allow you to legally overspend this budget because, as Mark said, you never know what type of season you're going to have. So long as you fund it in an amount equal to or above what you funded it the year before. So we're careful about going up because it's really a bad idea to go down. So we don't go up that often in this budget unless, as Mark said, over a 5-year period, we look at what the average is and says, okay, we still have to start bringing this up a little bit more to reflect what it actually is. But it's difficult, if not impossible, to ever bring this budget down because then that triggers certain things with the state.
yeah, and we've had some years when it went way over.
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Okay, next one is streetlights, 424. Level funded, $10,600. A couple years ago, we saw a fairly large reduction in this budget to switching over to LED lights, which has proven very successful. I may be able to have reduced this a little bit more. However, we're in the process of going through a new bid right now on streetlight service contract. So we weren't sure what that bid was going to come in at, so I level funded it.
Makes sense.
One question.
Sure, go ahead, Kathleen.
Madam Chair, through you to Mark. When the solar panels get installed at the transfer station, will they be paying for streetlights?
You know that, Dan?
I know municipal buildings are tied. How about the streetlights of Wellfleet?
I think how it works is that all of our electricity will be derived from the solar panels at the transfer station, where we'll see what our reduction in cost is by the agreement that we have, that you just recently signed, the power purchase
Right.
agreement. But all of our power will come from green energy. It will be from the solar panels.
Yeah.
So, I guess
yeah,
that's a yes, sort of.
Yeah,
All of
along
our
those
electric
lines.
power, I should say it
right,
that
yeah.
way, yes.
So okay, I don't want to get lost in this, but with streetlights, I mean, aren't they all associated with the DOT? I mean, who's got the main switch to the streetlights? That's who's paying or benefiting from it.
The town owns the light itself.
And the wiring?
The wiring is.
conduit?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So if a street lamp breaks or is destroyed, we have to replace it as part of that, as well as paying for the electricity.
Yeah.
All 233 of them.
Wow.
Through you, doesn't another entity own some of them?
Verizon owns the poles.
Ah, that's what
Not the light.
yeah, right.
Right.
Not the light. Got it.
Okay.
433, transfer station budget.
Okay.
Again, this budget has been level funded. There's been a couple of factors that have grown since last year's budget, even though it has been level funded. We probably all know that the price of recycling, due to the China sword, which is China's reluctance to take our recyclables these days, has increased the price of recycling. However, since we're such a good recycling community, our refuse number for what's taken to the incinerator has gone down. So that has helped offset, even though it hasn't covered the cost, it has helped offset the overall cost of the transfer station. And that, along with some other reductions that were made, has allowed me to level fund this budget. So,
Great. Good.
Janet, question?
Uh-huh.
Through you to Mark, what's the gap? In other words, the recycling isn't as profitable as it might be, but there's less tonnage. What's roughly the
what's the difference?
gap, roughly? I couldn't find it. I was sort of poking
Well,
around.
you wouldn't have had that on, actually. But right now, let me just look for that number. I had an average number here, Gene, didn't I?
Oh, well.
I averaged it out.
Well, Mark is
Still say
looking
it's
that up.
growing.
Mark and I have had conversations about
But I
this
had the
in that
tonnage number.
it costs us more to recycle now than it does to send stuff to
Yeah.
burn in an incinerator.
So-
So we're doing it because we're trying to help the environment, but there's now, the way the markets have changed, there's now a cost to recycle as opposed to, the town would save money if we didn't recycle. but we're doing it to try and help the environment.
I
So-
certainly wouldn't want to discourage anybody from recycling based on that number, because things could change.
Right.
So we wouldn't want to uneducate people just to try to re-educate them. So I would encourage them to still recycle. However, there is a fair, you're talking, depending on the material, it could be upwards, depending on the week, from $80 to $100 a ton, whereas we're paying $60 a ton
Thank
to
you.
dispose of it. But that fluctuates.
So when all of this started changing, I think in the spring, there was something I read on the news, don't know if I told you this, but that newspaper, plain, clean, used newspaper is now bringing in a higher price than paper all thrown in together. Do you want to start something like, do you know
That's
about that, or do you want to separate that out?
We are doing that now to a degree.
Well, but you want the public's
We are
help.
achieving the higher number for the product that we have right now compared to single-stream recycling. In order to separate it even more would be a larger infrastructure expense. I'd have to get more compactors and that type of thing. That's not saying that we shouldn't do it, but the market fluctuates so much,
yeah.
you could get all set up to do that, knowing you're gonna get $10 more a ton, and then it could change
Yeah,
next week. So, yes and no.
okay. Newspapers are easy, for me anyhow. You
Yeah.
just kind of put them in one thing. Okay, Bob?
Having spent a couple of years in the paper business, cardboard was always pretty lucrative. Is it still that way? Is it worth?
It is,
Cardboard.
compared to other recyclables, it is. However, it's the haul that's kind of, the expense to haul the material off Cape, it's what's really killing us right now. So I can give you an example. Cardboard, for example. Newspaper and cardboard. It's costing us $60 per ton, just based, for the haul. And on the other end, we're getting $20 a ton, I think, wasn't it?
No,
This changed?
we had, so
Yeah.
each pickup is $318, and each ton that we bring within that haul is $60 per ton. So it costs us $111
Yeah.
approximately.
Yeah, even after the credit, if we get a credit.
And we haven't been getting credits, they stopped.
They stopped giving us credit. I'm sorry. We're not getting credits for a combination of cardboard and newspaper right now. We're not getting a credit for a combination of cardboard and newspaper right now. So beyond that, it's just strictly the haul, and it's averaging us around $100 a ton to recycle cardboard and newspaper together.
Janet?
Yep.
I was going to try and change this conversation, but I'm still there on this recycling thing. Other towns are also dealing with this right now on the Cape, so we're not the only one with regard to, recycling is costing us money. But the larger issue in this situation with recycling is if you're a commercial hauler, you're likely to be telling people, it's not worth recycling, so they're not paying more, to get where I'm going with that. But it could change. I don't know if it changes, but where we are environmentally, we really have to recycle with regard to the water and the ocean and everything that we have here on the Cape, so it's going to cost us more money, I think, going into the future.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a kind of a political football right now.
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately, so.
But my real question mark was going to go to landfill monitoring. You tell me, do we contract that out, or is that something that you guys can do?
No, we contract that out. We have to
And
contract
that
out.
contract's costing us $17,000 a year?
Yep.
Any way to get rid of that?
It has to be done by certain certified engineers that are specialized in that area and reporting to the state.
Okay, just thought I'd ask,
Yep.
thank you.
One more.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had some exchanges with various people who know more about this than I do. And one of the problems at our facility, even though it's really well-run, is that the people bring stuff that is not good recycling product. It's filthy, it's mixed, I've looked into the bins, I've seen things that do not belong there. And no wonder China said, we don't want your disgusting polluted trash anymore. Is there some way in the future for us to get the word out to the public that they've got to clean up their garbage? We all roll our eyes, but once I found that out, I started rinsing off my plastic things. I don't take dirty things in anymore. I don't wash them, but they're not dirty, they don't have food on them, and I don't mix them.
That's all well.
Yes.
Certainly well-intentioned, but the thing is they do go to a destination where they're separated and recycled to what degree they can be. What I would be working on is another campaign of what we're using, as opposed to what and how we're throwing things out. And I'd like to charge the recycling committee with that, if they start concentrating more on that end of things, really look at what we're using as opposed to what we're consuming, what the plastic, for example, that we're consuming.
Yeah,
Well,
it's horrible.
I didn't
I'm-
quite understand what you meant about what
So
we're using.
if we're going to, instead of educating people, which isn't a bad idea, about how they should
Rinse or
bring the
clean.
recyclables to the transfer station, I'd much rather see us do an educational campaign on what we're buying.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you mean the kind of containers?
Plastic containers.
That's,
yeah.
okay,
That type
thank
of
you.
thing, and how to reuse them, not
Yeah,
sort
or
of-
not use them at all. So I want to put a plug in for Mike, because up at the transfer station, Mike and, actually, on the weekends, people are there to help you, to watch you recycle, but then also to help you if you have questions. So I think they do a really good job about that. So, but yeah, we should all use, I'm kind of astounded at the amount of garbage I use as a single person, you know? So,
Madam
okay,
Chair?
moving on from recycling, because we,
Quickly, you said that, you know, in response to newspapers or cardboard, we could sort of orient our recycling efforts one way and then the market could change. That said, is there any thing you can think of that would make our trash more marketable?
Well, the one thing that Helen mentioned, or who mentioned about the cardboard? I'm sorry, but anyways. Bob did, I'm sorry, Bob. But, you know, if we separated the cardboard from newspaper, and again, I'd have to check with our source about it. But theoretically, we might be able to get some more if it was just cardboard. My problem would be setting up another,
Bin for newspaper.
another compactor to receive that.
can you use one of the present contract
They're all
compactors?
dedicated for something, so, like
I mean,
newspaper and
yeah.
cardboard, you still have to have one for the newspaper, still have one for the cardboard. Now, having said
And for,
that,
and for other boxes, or other paper?
well, where we have one compactor for newspaper and cardboard, we would now need two, one for each item.
Well, why don't you look into it, because you know Wellfleet loves to recycle,
Well,
and we like to help
well,
the
that's,
earth.
I'm not,
I
so
know.
I'm suggesting that depending on what the market is, we can look forward on that.
Oh, okay,
See what I'm saying?
okay, yeah, great, good.
So how much, sorry, through you, how much is a compactor, roughly? I mean, what are we talking here?
Well, this is in the
know.
projected budget.
You're talking an investment of probably another $50,000 by the time
Oh,
you're done.
okay, thank you.
So, but having said that, I've gotten 5 containers, not the whole unit, through state grants that we've applied for, or Gene has applied for. So, and we're looking at expanding our recycling up there, area up again, so I could probably incorporate that, but I wouldn't want to be penny wise and pound foolish at the same time, so
Okay.
Good,
definitely worth looking into.
okay. Any comments from the Finance Committee?
Well, around the back, you have only cardboard where all the stores go. Is that right?
Yep.
that could be expanded to the people that are diligent about good recycling.
Good.
There's so much cardboard,
Yep.
Amazon,
Yeah.
that I think looking down the
Amazon,
road, Amazon's going to be looking for, I mean, so the pressure on availability of cardboard is going to rise.
Yeah.
So I think you definitely should look into it. I think it could be lucrative.
Sure.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's the last one I have.
Okay. Thank you for working hard on this and level funding and,
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark
you.
and Jean.
Thank you.
Now, it is up to you whether you, at this time, want to recommend
okay.
and approve their budget, or you can do it all at once at a later meeting when we do it, so.
I would like to do a motion on this budget.
Okay, good.
I move that we, what's the wording here?
Recommend.
Recommend the DPW's budget as presented to us this evening.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Who do we have next? Who's up next? Chief Facette.
Why don't you take Nancy?
Because Nancy, because we're going, there's an
Tide
order
and
to
line.
it. She has been here a long time.
Yeah, and so is
Low
Bob.
tide.
You want to skip me? Go someone else?
Oh,
We're just
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up to you. I can wait.
It really doesn't matter to me, so.
chief is in the seat.
I'm in this.
Yeah,
Let's
he's
just-
in, yeah, you're there, you're there,
Let's zoom
Chief.
right
Yeah.
along.
Let's do what?
So we are now in public safety, page 1, the police department.
Just off the top, what is S and W?
What?
S and W.
Salary and
Salary and
wages.
Okay,
Thank you, okay. There's a quiz, I had to think about that.
Oh, big thing.
What I would like to do is a little different than what I've done in the past, is I would just sort of like to talk a little bit about global, what I see out there for the police in the next 5 years or something like that, and then I'll narrow it down as we get down into the 2020 budget. One of the things I'm hearing about that the next chief and the next police department is going to have to deal with is our special officers. There is a move out there that special officers may go way of the dodo bird. They're trying to revamp the training. They're trying to up the training. They're trying to maybe look at doing a single training. So we could end up losing the ability of having special officers. They may make it so obsolete that down the road that we won't be able to have them.
So could you, before you go further, could you explain what a special officer is?
These are our people who are working here in the summertime that augment our police
Okay.
department. These are the people who work out on the Ocean View Drive to help manage traffic. These are the ones who come out and assist us, that work with us in the Oyster Fest and all the different events that we have that we are able to draw on. They're not as experienced as full-time officers, but they do a great job for us, and we draw our people for future hires from there. You know, over 30 years ago, that's how I started. We went from there. I do have a couple of chiefs who use special officers who are going to be on the committee that are going to be discussing this, but I keep hearing about this, and I keep hearing about this coming up. So this is something that will not affect us in the next 5 years or something like that. Those who are here will be able to maintain their training, but this is something that could happen. And just as I brought up 10 years ago when the Crown Vics were slowly starting to fall out of favor and they're going to be replaced, I wanted to let the board know about that so we can sort of think about the future. It has nothing to do with my 2020 budget now, but as someone else brings this up to you down the road, I don't want it to be the first time saying, oh, I didn't know this was coming. And it'll be a reminder in the back of your head that I remember the chief had mentioned this back in the day, so we are working on it. At least I'm working on it with another chief, trying to keep this as a viable program because it does work for our community.
Can I ask a question, Jan?
Helen had her hand
Yeah.
up first.
this would be a disaster for this seasonal community. So
Yeah.
where is the idea or the requirement for this coming
What's
from?
driving this?
It's being driven by the Mass Training Council. There are different chiefs on board. There are different people who are on board. EOPS, Executive Office of Public Safety, they are just starting to look at this. They were going to look at it a couple of years ago. They moved it off because they wanted to get the training for the police academies worked on. They got this bridge done. So now they are looking at this down the road. There'll be many meetings on this. There'll be chances for our chief to speak on this. There'll be other chance for the other chiefs. We have some chiefs who are on the committee that will have a chance to speak on this, but we do have large agency and small agency. This will have a big effect on the western part of the state as well. So it is not a fait complete yet, but it is something that's being talked out there, and you'll hear this coming up and being discussed down the road. And it was something that I just don't want you guys to sit there and say,
Yeah.
geez, I never heard about this, or I didn't know about this. And that's why I'm just sort of bringing it up as a high end that's future.
Future concern.
Exactly. As I start floating down closer to the 2020 budget, about a month ago, I gave you notice my intent to retire so that we can sort of start to plan what a transition is to be a police chief and where I go from here and things like that. In the perfect world, I would have probably kept my request a little quieter and things like that. I just have more people approaching me now than I wouldn't necessarily even welcome, but it's not fair to the board trying to plan. It's not fair to the finance committee trying to plan the money and things like that, so that's why I brought it up. In doing so, I do have an extra item within the budget, a different line item, and that item is of a $45,000 to transition the cost of me leaving and things like that. That is normally held within the budget, but that's something I'm hoping that we can look to plan for. We had done this in the past with Marilyn Crary. We've done it in the past with different department heads, had some long tenures I've had. So that's my hope and things like that. I'd like to remind people, in order to get a police officer up and running, takes a long time. I have an opening that happened in July. We appointed the person at the Board of Selectmen not too long ago. They are going to the academy in April. They are not going to get out of the academy until October, September. So that's going to be over 14 months from the time that I had an opening to the time I get that position filled. It takes a while to happen. I have a transition plan that I've been working with the town administrator on that I'm trying to target, that if we adopt the plan that we have, that hopefully we can bring a person on board and have a person transition out as I'm leaving to minimize that plan. If we wait till I get done, we wait till I get all my funding for leaving, that means I may not get a person into the academy until September of 2019. That means a person's not going to get out on the road until February 2020. And then I'm getting my years, but it's going to be 18 months from when I leave, and that's a long time. I currently have 2 other officers who are getting older and things like that may be looking at retirement, and it's a cascading effect. And Truro quickly found themselves 3 officers behind the ball and trying to get caught up. And playing catch-up is a lot harder and it's more costly. And when we rush, we make bad choices. So I do ask you to think about our transition. I do ask you to think about how we go from here. You got a letter about my recommendation. That is something you can think about. We can discuss hopefully maybe in January. But my 2020 budget was planned for a transition. That's what that extra line item that's in there.
Jan?
Helen?
Through you, I want to thank you for your monthly reports, which are excellent, which I read, and it sort of preps me for what came in on this book, this budget book. But I want to go back to what you just said. Is it such a given, and maybe it is, because people can never find places to live around here, is it such a given that a new officer coming into our department would have to be going through the academy? Aren't there people that, may be serving somewhere else that would want to get a job here?
We do look at that, and that's always a possibility. I plan, I don't want to say for the worst, but I plan for having to send someone to the academy. If the right person shows up that I don't have to send, it's a bonus. But those don't happen that often. I have a gentleman that we just recently, our benefit came from Truro, local, fully academy trained. That was a real easy plug and play. It worked out great. However, I have had a person I brought in before they had academy trained that didn't work as a good plug and play, and it ran into a lot of problems and caused a lot of heartburn in the town and trying us to work around that. So it's not always the best. And we will adjust and determine as we go forward. But I planned for not having someone and that we had to send them to the academy.
Thank you.
Any comment from our town administrator?
Just hearing him talk, it's we keep, all of us on the Cape, Outer Cape, and even a little bit further, we're all kind of cannibalizing each other. You know, we don't actively try to steal from each other, but if the grass is greener in another community, we're going to lose somebody unless we have something that's competitive with that community. So it's an ongoing battle at all times, so.
Janet?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say that we just kind of watched Truro go through this transition, and it's going to come to Wellfleet. But at the same time, my hope is, in all our departments, where we're losing somebody, is that we can promote from within to somebody that's already here. Ideally, that works financially for me, so that's my best hope.
I hope so. Again, I've been very fortunate. I came on board in 1986. I've held a lot of positions from a special officer to a dispatcher to an officer and worked my way up until eventually where I took the role as the chief of police. I think it's worked for the town. I think the town's appreciated. I think it's worked for the department. I am by no means perfect. I'm by no means the best of everything, but I think it's a good fit, and it's been a very good plan. Hopefully that we have the plan that I laid out, that I think we could continue to do that same model. But again, that's up to you guys, how you wish to proceed and what your comfort level is. That is how I've sort of pushed it forward and remind you of that. But again, I'm along for the ride. This is your appointment. This is how you wish to proceed and things like that, so.
Justina?
So I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You're saying that you want to plan for a good transition for now till the time you retire, correctly?
Correct.
And so you've made a recommendation of an additional amount requested of $45,000, which also includes accumulated sick leave and so forth. But you're also, when you say you hope we want to do it this way, are you saying that you hope that we agree with a period of time when you stay with the department so that we can get the hires in place and so forth?
Right now, the $45,000 is needed to pay for my accumulated time. I have over 300 sick days that I've been here, things like that. I've been very fortunate, things like that. Currently, if that's absorbed within the budget, that means you have to hold off on hiring someone. So either you hold off on hiring a chief, whether it be you promote someone from within, or you go outside to look for someone else. Truro end up having to do this for over a year, waiting to get caught up. In the meantime, you're falling further behind in personnel as you try to do that. When Marilyn Crary went to retire, they recognized this. So she was owed money and things like that. So instead of trying not to have an accountant on board and passing that workload to someone else, they said, let's get ahead of the curve on this. Let's recognize this and adjust for that. And that's what sort of my hope is here. My hope is that by the time I go to leave, that I will have a person in the academy ready to come on board, that you'll have made the decision of who's going to be the next chief, and it'll be all lined up. Sort of very similar to what Brewster did with their position. It worked out very well for them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to restate the obvious. So you're suggesting that we start recruiting and planning for your replacement. Is that correct?
Well, I presented out a plan that you would look to identify the next person would be the lieutenant who's currently sitting within the department.
Got it.
If that is something you're comfortable with, then we can just sort of formalize the transition time schedule, say, okay, if we're going to look to do that, that means we have to do interviews to replace that person. That means we have to start interviewing in May for that person so we can get them ready to go off into an academy in September, get the person out of the academy right in February when I'm stepping out the door, and it's sort of a nice, smooth transition. If that is something the board is wishing to do, that's what I'd recommend, but if not, you have to look at a process of how you want to replace the chief, how do you want to do a search committee, how you wish to go forward.
That's good.
This is not, on our agenda. We're supposed to be discussing your budget, but I would hope that we talk about this in an agenda item sometime soon, because, no.
I think we're going to have it in January, probably. We'll
Yeah,
probably
it's
have an
coming up, but I
executive
didn't know
session
about
to
that.
talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, in other words, that makes sense, and it worked last time. You were, stepped up from the acting police chief then, and you were the next in line.
I think it worked. I think the town's been happy with the process of it. But again, that's your decision to make. There are many ways we can go on it, but that's how, my recommendation, if you wish to listen or however, proceed.
Okay, so that'll happen in the future, but what about the budget?
Justine
Madam
has
Chair,
one more comment.
Thank you for your obvious concern for the town, and I'm sure we'll look forward to buttoning it up and finalizing it in January.
Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to ask Mr. Wallace if he had any comments on the police department. Do you look at all this?
I think they do a great job. I think its leadership is the key to the way the police department is run, and I'm thrilled with our current chief, and I'm sorry to see him go.
I know.
Well, thank you. It's a long time. The other item that we added into the budget is a different item, and that was a separate request, and that was at $25,000 for special activities and programs. This here is something that we're looking to model after Provincetown. Lieutenant Hurley works real well with Provincetown. I know he's talked with the town administrator about this, but what they do is they set up a line item to fund events for the town, because it falls outside of the normal operation of the department. And this really came to a head when we started talking about what do we want to do with the beaches? How do we want to do added patrols? How are we going to handle extra events? What do we do at Oyster Fest? Oyster Fest runs from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, or whatever the hours at Oyster Fest, but Oyster Fest isn't over at that hour. We are staffing people, we are bringing OUI patrols, we are staffing extra into the night, and these things all have a cost. So the true thing is saying, shouldn't we set up an activity line? And the lieutenant really took to spearhead this. He wrote a nice letter, I think it's sort of in the package that is sort of plagiarized and put over, or I actually had him do it, and put it over into the thing. And I think it just identifies it. This is above and beyond what we normally would do, but it was something for your consideration. And I know it's sort of a hot topic right now we're trying to get a head around, so.
Janet?
Yes.
Through you. So I saw that, I saw the line item that referred to Oyster Fest. And I thought, wait a minute. In our agreement every year, they're supposed to pay for a certain amount of that. Why are they not paying for all of it out of the Oyster Fest profits? Why?
Well, they pay for the cost of the event itself. They pay for what's going on for the event. They pay, the restaurants paid for extra activity. But whenever you have an event, it still brings it in, and things go beyond that event. So we have thousands of people who are hanging around in the evening that aren't playing or aren't part of Oyster Fest that we still have to address, we still have to handle. So we do have people arrested for drunk driving. We still have all the different things from just having people around, whether it be a football game or anything that brings in.
I repeat, this is happening because of Oyster Fest, which is, we support every year. Shouldn't they be at least addressing some of that extra? It would not be happening. It's not like what happens on the 4th of July or something. This is an invented occasion, put on not by the town, allowed by the town, and shouldn't they be paying into that?
It's up to the board. We can try and get more costs or things from them, but these are indirect costs that aren't clearly identifiable to the Oyster Fest. I can sit here and say for the event that we put on X amount of officers, we do extra amount of officers for parking, we do X amount of officers for securing the road and for alcohol monitoring and all the things that happen during the event. It just starts to get to what happens at 10 o'clock. Is this an oyster event that we have to deal with a drunk, or if this is an Oyster Fest that we have to deal with a car accident? Is this extra event because we have to deal with the domestic violence because someone's down, the added extra population? And that's where, I try to stay out of the political kickball game. And these are things that we have to do. These are what I own and that we have to staff for, and that's why I'm trying to find a way of funding July 4th.
Bring it up at Oyster Fest when they come before us in the spring, because it is, I know exactly what you're saying, and I don't know if there's a way to evaluate it, but it certainly would be a consideration.
Respectfully, there would be. All you'd have to do is compare your logs for the last umpteen years, which exist, for those dates. And I think we would see numbers that we don't see at other times, even in the middle of summer.
Right. And when we talk about that, that is, Oyster Fest is one portion of it, but we are talking about having beach patrols July 4th, having
Right.
beach
No,
patrols
no,
in
yeah.
part of July. One of the concerns that the lieutenant and I always talk about is that when we try to say we want to do something, to be able to actually have the manpower or the woman power to actually carry it out. And what the lieutenant has worked on is he's talked to the sheriff. Again, he's worked for Provincetown, that they bring people on board who help out and do special functions, and they follow the lead. So if we weren't able to have our people do it, that this money could be used to fund us bring this resources in to help out with July 4th weekend, because we are so busy doing our own stuff and trying to staff our own shifts and all the other things. So that's why we're looking for this here.
Yeah.
It's worked very well in Provincetown.
It would be a good idea to not get hard numbers, but to come up with an estimate of what that does cost the town. And, things like parking patrol that may be coming up this summer or so. What extra money you may need for that. I mean, just a rough guesstimate at this point, but maybe there's some way to keep track of that, like Helen suggested.
Yeah, I do know that they're working with the parking committee, task force, for lack of a better word, that the lieutenant's been working on you with.
Yeah.
And that identifying who or how we're gonna do these different things. We're looking at kiosks, not kiosks, parking, not parking, and how best. And that is something that they are working, they know they're working with Suzanne in the beach program, because they already have staff who are doing a certain type of parking enforcement that it may fall very comfortable within their scope. So these are things that I know that they are working on, and as they get better direction and better clarity,
Right.
we can
Yeah.
try and start talking about some of that.
Yeah, no, it's a new thing. Good. Any other comments?
Well, that brings me right down to the budget itself.
Where are we now?
In looking over the budget, 210, it sort of stays in line with how I've presented in the past. The overall increase is with the newest contracts and the different steps. We are getting caught up from some past funding and budget, so the percentage increase isn't as high as what the accountant's office has it as, because they haven't been able to attribute all the money there. Line A2, I made a typo. I said a slight increase of $2,000, it was an increase of $200. So I realized that when I'm reviewing this. But overall, it's pretty much the same format we've done in the past. It's roughly the same. I just try to adjust for the new wages. If you want me to walk down each one, I can. If you have a question about a specific one, I'll answer the question.
Are you level funded?
I showed us having an increase of just over 2.5%.
Gotcha.
And
That's without-
the great majority of that is due to their contract,
Yeah.
the police union contract.
Right.
The 2.5, what I'm referencing is not including the two separate items.
Right.
I don't want to make,
Right.
I know
But you're basically level funded.
yes.
I have a quick question. You list on page one that the major accomplishments for fiscal year 2018. I just wanted to know if you had time to give a quick comment on what you're doing with opioid.
Well, right now, we're working with the towns, I can't remember the name right now, it's the
Navigator,
liaison.
the Navigator?
Thank you. Whew.
Yeah.
The Navigator program and things like that. So we've made referrals to the Navigator. We've made referral not on just opioid, but mental health issues, homelessness that we are coming across and working with them. We are still maintaining Narcan with all our officers. We have seen a decrease in the amount of overdoses that we are responding to. Cape-wide, it seems like it's a decrease Cape-wide, although I just had a meeting today with some other chiefs, and they said that they just saw a spike. I think it was Brewster, it might have been Yarmouth, I can't remember which chief was talking to me at the time. But overall, I think we're seeing a decrease. I haven't compared our numbers with the fire department's number, and the fire chief maybe will answer, but I think that's been the trend. I know we haven't used Narcan in a
really?
while ourselves, so I do see a reduction in it. But I also do believe that Narcan is being used by the general public without us being called.
Yeah.
So I am not my head in the sand or high in,
Yeah,
that
everybody
it's
has.
perfect and everything's fine. I think that I may be with a friend or someone and I see him or her overdose and I may end up turning around and giving them a Narcan myself. So I think there's sort of some of that going on behind the scenes and that they're not calling us as
Sure.
fire or rescue or police.
Any other questions? Do we want a motion to approve this budget?
I move that we approve the Public Safety Department's budget as we have received it tonight.
For the police.
You want
For the
police
police
dispatch? You want the
Police dispatch,
Oh.
thank you,
Yep.
yeah.
Dispatch is very similar,
What
things
I
like that.
said,
Yep.
yeah, right,
Perfect.
what you said, right.
Second?
All in favor?
Right.
Thank you.
And my last quick budget is
Okay.
level funded, my $5,000 from emergency management. We're gonna be seeing an alert network system that we're getting and going out there, so
Yeah.
that's a small one, that's nothing exciting and things like that, but if you
Well,
want
I hope you'll come back next year and help out with the budget. Or you can be a special,
be a special-
you can be a special officer.
hopefully you guys will still keep me and I can still be around a little bit anyways.
You can be on your bike. You
On my
can be,
bike.
you can be on your bike and be the special officer.
I like it, thank you.
Thank you very
Ron.
much.
Fire.
I hear. Communications, okay, fire.
Fine.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, I'm just going to say that, from my perspective, it has been a pleasure to work side by side with Chief Fassett. We have a very good relationship, we always have, and I know that was also the situation with my predecessor. But it comes from time to time when police chiefs and fire chiefs in certain communities, and I've seen it, don't necessarily work well together
Yeah.
and get along. And there is some rivalry. And we don't have that, we never have.
We
So I
got
want to
lucky.
thank him for his professionalism and his friendship, and congratulate him on his time off in the next few years. I also want to kind of give you the global view, just similarly as the police chief has. As of the last day of November of this year, with one more month to go, we've responded to 1,195 emergency calls. That's up 11%
Yeah.
so far over last year at this time. Of those calls, EMS rescue calls totaled at 752 so far. Fire and other calls are at 443. You've heard me discuss my concerns in the past, and I'll continue to do so, about our dwindling call force. We right now have 10 on-call personnel on the roster. Of those 10, 9 are active. 2 of those 10 are currently have started out paramedic training school. They start in September. That will go through probably next June. And then at some point in the summertime, we anticipate that those 2 individuals will be certified as paramedics. I'm very, very much concerned that once they become paramedics, we're going to lose them to another department. I also anticipate losing at least 2 other call firefighters within the next 12 months, one through resignation and one through possible retirement. That will give us down to 4 to 5 people, which is not sustainable. I know you hate to hear the fire chief give this gloom and doom, but I have to, again, give you the reality of it. And as we prepare a budget, we're preparing a budget to go into effect next July 1, which has to go out another 12 months. So, losing the potential of 4 or 5 people in the next 6 months to 8 months and not being able to have a plan for replacement or for boosting personnel puts us a year out of a real problem with providing service. And again, that's just the reality of it. The flip side of that, or I should say in addition to that, in 2017, the last paramedic class started with 19 students in the class. It wasn't that long ago that those classes were capped at 24 to 30, and there was a waiting list. And now in the 2017 class, which is just finishing up and becoming certified, because it takes about a year and a half,
How many people?
they're down to 15. Fortunately, one of those is working for us now, Mr. Kinshaw, and he's passed his paramedic, so he's just got to go through the field training. And the other gentleman, Mr. Bartolini, who we just hired, is finishing up. But, so out of the 19, 15, Wellfleet has 2, but we've captured them. The current class that started in September of 2018 had 10 students, again, 2 of which are Wellfleet call firefighter EMTs. And, you know, typically when you have a class, you start out with a number and you will lose 1 or 2 through whatever reason. And as of December, the following departments who are hiring full-time people: Dennis Fire, 6 openings; Barnstable, 1 opening; Yarmouth, 1+ opening; Orleans, 1 opening; Brewster, 1 opening; and Harwich, 1 opening. So those are the ones that I know of. Just in talking with the chiefs in the last couple of days, I'm sure there are many more out there. So we're competing for positions with fewer available qualified applicants, and we're also losing the call force. That is my message to the board.
I think that it's everywhere in rural America, too. I mean, it's serious on the Cape because of housing prices, but I think it's affecting all the states. Kathleen, what were you going to say?
Guess I'm going to have to use a dirty word here. Would you suggest we should be looking into regionalizing?
Oh, I think that's a very good word. I like that word.
Yeah.
I've been a proponent of regionalization for years.
Okay.
And I think at least the Outer Cape is ripe for it. And I would certainly welcome that discussion, and I would encourage it. The problem is that I think that I'm in the minority right now.
Yeah.
You know,
I say it's a dirty word.
So I think in the past, I know that when I don't know, Truro, Wellfleet, Easton, we were all building fire stations and new police stations, and back then, and schools. And it was, nobody wanted it. They all wanted their own town identity. But I do think the time has come where we need to have that discussion again. And maybe you can start it amongst yourselves, you guys too, and who's ever here from the school committee. But I think I think it may take a couple more years to get it going, but it should always be there.
Well, and if I may, Madam Chair, I agree with you, and I'm more than happy to have this discussion, but it was basically 2 years ago that, well, maybe 2.5 years ago now, when Mr. Takanian was the town administrator, and when the Truro Fire Chief retired, he and I packed up our briefcase and went over and had a conversation with a few members of the Board of Selectmen in Truro and with the new town manager at the time. And we pitched sharing the fire chief.
Yeah.
You know, and try that for 3 years, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we can tweak it. We had some really good conversations about that, but at the end of about this 3-month process between meetings going back and forth, Truro decided to go on their own. So, again, I'm more than willing to have these conversations, but unfortunately, it doesn't solve our immediate problem.
No.
But
But it may come down to that, the more problems there are and the more that it's going to happen. And that's usually the way things happen. They're forced to happen. So, good. I mean, I think I'm for regionalization.
So I was at least one of those meetings, maybe 2, that Chief Pauly just described. I tagged along. Turkanian was there. Chief Pauly was there. We met with Truro. I'm not so sure about regionalization, and I have a couple questions. So these 2 people that are coming up, you know, going through training, do they live here or close to Wellfleet?
One lives in Wellfleet, and the other lives in North Eastham.
Okay, here's my point. We have to figure out how to make ourselves attractive to the best possible candidates for the department. Maybe it means we offer more money. This might be a good place to spend more money. Maybe it means that we have a department that's fun and pleasant and efficient to work in. And that's a personnel thing that has to do with stuff that is, you can't chart it, really. And the other thing is, I've thought of not regionalization, because what came out of that meeting for me, I thought like, okay, this is an option, Janet, or Madam Chair. But I realized that your department and also the police department has such specific application to the people that live here and the circumstances of our exact environment, even in summer with all the strangers coming in, that it may not be the best, most workable way to do it except for finances. That's sort of what I came out of it with, okay? I'm not romantic about it. I just think it wasn't going to work out practically in the end. I have a question about that, separate from what I'm saying about making Wellfleet more attractive for these employees, which would mean, among other things, offering them more money. We've already looked at that once in executive session without going into the exact thing that we arrived at this year. And I think that we should try to make ourselves as attractive as possible so that people want to stay. And that's the reason, if it's an easy commute, that helps them want to stay.
Well,
but I have another line item question, so
Janet?
when we're done.
Do you
Can
want
I respond just
Yeah.
to what Helen just said, and I'm probably going to say the same thing that the chief was saying. We're in negotiations with the firefighters union right now, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, is we're looking at other communities and comparing ourselves to them and seeing where our shortfalls are in our compensation. And we're working on getting our compensation. We'll probably come to you in executive session probably in January to show you a tentative idea of what we would be looking at. But it's exactly, we're trying to make sure that we can do everything possible to make ourselves the most attractive department, that people want to stay and we don't lose them to other communities. So.
Yes, because budget-wise, financially, we lose money when we keep losing these people we've trained.
Sure.
It's inefficient, and, so.
But Janet, may I
Yes,
just,
Ms. Bacon?
Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Wilson, there's nothing to romanticize about regionalization. It may just be a fact of life and a reality, because in the area that we live in, real estate prices just eclipse anybody trying to come here and take a job at a police department or a fire department. You know, you're looking at a basic home for a family in Wellfleet that's just shy of $500,000. That's a reality that we're facing. But, I also look at the regionalization thing as we go into the future with what might happen out on the back shore and our ocean side with responding to events out on our beaches. This is going to take a team effort. It's not going to be just Wellfleet or Eastham or Truro. It's going to be all of us maintaining safety out on the back shore. And I look at that as a regional effort. So,
Janet? Yeah, this is a thought that hasn't been brought up.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a form of regionalization already. It's called mutual aid, and it works
Yeah.
very well. And it's a setup that, we've figured out how to do financially and applies it, it's applied, it comes into use when there's an extra emergency situation. And it works very well. So that's about as far as I would want to go with regionalization. So I'll think more about it, but.
Well, we'll see. It'll come up again.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the report? You want to continue?
Well, I guess what I'm going to implore upon the board is that you will probably hear from me very shortly again about the need to add full-time staffing. to add full-time staffing.
Add full-time staffing,
Because,
okay.
again, as the call force declines in 18 months, and no one is coming in and knocking at the door, and right after the first of the year, I'll be doing an article in the Banner to try to get encouraging folks, but we cannot provide the service that the town deserves and expects to receive in the declining state of our ability to respond with people. And I anguish over this. The town administrator and I talk about this on a regular basis. And as I've, the joke is the fire chief's always coming with his hat in his hand, but it's no joke. And I'm not trying to scare anyone. That's not my point. I'm just trying to point out reality. So, and we're going to lose some really good people here in the next year to other departments, and it'd be a shame if we don't have the ability to at least offer them a position should something, we need the help. And it'd be nice to be able to keep local people here.
Agreed. Any other comments? Do you want to say anything about the fire department?
Who pays for the paramedic schooling?
They pay for it themselves out of their pocket. It's about $10,000 to $12,000, depending upon which course you take. So the individual pays for it out of their pocket.
If the town did pay part of that, could there be a retention for a number of years?
We have, we have a similar agreement. We have an agreement in the bargaining agreement with the full-time members of the firefighters union that if we put, they have to be sponsored into the fire academy. I use this as an example. So as sponsoring them into the fire academy, it's an 11-week program. They're given a stipend of about $5,000 to live and provide for their necessities while they're there, and they're paid their salary to go there. They're required by contract to stay with us for 1 year. If they don't, then they have to reimburse the town that $5,000. And then there's a sliding scale every month after that. That language is good, and it's important, and we enforce it, but it's still not enough to keep. If you've got another department that's, starting a firefighter paramedic at $10,000 or $11,000 or $12,000 more a year, at the Mid-Cape, where housing is $100,000 less to buy a house, that $5,000 that they're going to write a check back to the town of Willowfleet's not going to keep them here. I'm not saying that that's not a worthy idea. We're talking about that, again, as an incentive, and I'm open to any and all suggestions. So there are discussions about that.
Okay. We're all set?
I had one more line item that I wanted to ask
Okay.
about. So, a few years ago, we started using county dispatch. And I'm going to ask the question every time about that. Is that really working well enough?
It is working exceptionally well.
Yeah.
It is. I'm so pleased for what we pay. This year, or FY20, we'll be paying $23,317 for county dispatch. They provide an excellent service. We are working now with them at upgrading our technology, so they do what we call computer-aided dispatch, but through tablets and computers that are being installed in the apparatus. We're going to have GIS points. We're going to have mapping. It's just, they do an excellent job. They really do. And I believe, there are 11 fire departments in the Cape that are dispatched by the county. We were the last one to get in.
Right.
I would very much advocate for us staying there and not going in the other direction.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would just add a story to that I heard that's pretty amazing, because we were also worried about county dispatch and them not knowing our area and not knowing, where Aunt Josephine lives or whatever. And there was an occasion recently where somebody had to call the EMS, and the dispatcher says, "What's the address?" And nobody knows addresses here. Well, I live off Old County Road, somewhere on Commercial Street. And they asked the name, and the dispatcher knew the name, and they went right to the house. So
They have multiple.
It's pretty darn local.
They have they have a couple redundant ways of tracking an address
Yeah.
and actually pulling it up on the Selectboard, and they'll say, "It's the red house. You guys just went by it."
Yes.
It's just remarkable.
Yeah, so it's a good regionalization. Okay, can I have a motion? Anything else?
You do it.
I move to recommend the 220 Fire Department budget for 2020.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief?
So now we've got,
January, I guess.
not last but not least, actually, we don't have any other departments tonight, so thank you, Nancy, for being patient and being here, and
And I'm gonna-
Nancy, I promise to put you first next year, so.
Yeah,
local. She doesn't drive far.
so, through you, before anybody ever even starts,
Okay.
through you to Ms. Chivetta, didn't the Shellfish Committee, who heard in detail about your budget proposals and the whole context, didn't they vote unanimously to recommend it?
No, I don't think they did. I think they wanted to look it over, and we're going to talk about it at the next meeting with a vote.
Yeah, but it
They're
seems,
supportive, but, it's a lot of documents to look
Yeah.
through, so I didn't want to push them. I just wanted to bring them into the loop, and then they can look at it. And so the next meeting, I think, is on the 3rd, January 3rd at 8 a.m.
so I just want to say, I was there, and this budget was vetted way, way beyond what we were going to do. They took it apart and put it on the table and watched how it worked, and it was really excellent.
Okay, Helen.
Well,
Thank you, Helen.
Okay. Do you want,
17. Page 17.
So,
Welcome.
thank you. It's great to be here.
If I can kind of introduce Nancy's budget. Nancy and I had a chance to talk today, and what I asked her to do is to kind of think about almost like a 5-year plan for the Shellfish Department. Because, last year we added a part-time seasonal position.
Right.
And this year, she requested that we make that a full-time seasonal position. And I think what I would like to see from the Shellfish Department when she's talking to you, just that there's a plan for the future. It isn't blindly that she's just coming to you each year and saying, okay, I want some more money and now I want to do this. It's kind of to fulfill the plan of what she's looking at and thinking that her Shellfish Department needs to look like in 5 years. So that's kind of where she's going, and I've just kind of asked her to put that together a little bit for all of us so we all kind of know what direction we're heading in, so.
does every department have a 5-year plan, budget plan?
I would say probably most of them do not.
Well, I'll try and be one of the first.
Yeah.
So, launching off of that, I asked for money last year, an increase, and I'm asking again this year. So Dan rightly said, coming back every year and asking for increases can be problematic if you don't have a vision. And let's put out a little bit of a vision and a plan so that we can evaluate it and see if we can come to agreement. So as I looked and spoke with Johnny and Chris today, as I just put a one-pager together today. And our goal, our vision as a department would be to raise 1 million oysters and 1 million clams for propagation. So to do that, we're going to need to make some investments in the future, not this year, in the future, into nursery systems, a floating upweller system, perhaps a land-based upweller system, and staff. And I'm just forgetting what the other thing was. And down the road, if we are successful, we might need to add an additional full-time staff person. But we're not there now. I'm just trying to take the long view. So to get us there, at least to increase what we're doing, I left the propagation line item the same, level funded. That's line item 180. Because last year we really did increase that quite a bit. and I feel like I have enough to work with. And in addition, I have some money left over from the SPAT grant from last year, and I am applying for another grant to help increase our aquaculture gear at a minimum. I've put some seed in there and other things as well. But so I'm trying to think outside of the box, not come to the town for that. But I am coming back for my budget 179, which is kind of the general operating budget. And probably, the most important piece of that is a full-time seasonal worker. So I met with the town treasurer, and I found out exactly what the stipulations are to keep somebody seasonal, just like the DPW and the beach department, and not have to incur. They're just an hourly wage person and a staff person. So the budget that I put forth was for a little more than 25 weeks at 40 hours a week. And I have a commitment, obviously, from Andrew, who worked with us last year, because his time with us is also from the middle of May to June 30th, because of the way the years run. So then starting July 1, he would become full-time until I think it's the middle of October. But this will allow us to not only have him spend more time propagating when necessary. He'll do the 2-day recreational fishery again. But we got really behind in our grant inspections this year, just as one example, where we could have used an extra person. We did start to train him for commercial patrol, but he only had 4 hours a day. So we can use him more time when it comes to doing land-based propagation stuff and just helping out with all the different things that we manage. So that's an important thing, and I was really pleased to see that Dan had included that in his approval of the budget. The other thing that Dan approved in the budget was we are getting our new barge, and I hope you've seen the 2 pontoons that we had an AmeriCorps day out there, and they helped Johnny paint and sand and paint the pontoons. So our barge is coming. We'll get it in May, end of April, May, and we will need to, from now on, take it in and out of the water, which is going to cost $500 each time, and we'll need to service those two engines, which will be $500 each engine to winterize them. So, and the other thing that Dan did approve was the capital investment plan, and that's for 2 new motors. So we're hoping to get a cult season out of them this year, and frankly, if I can make them last, I will, but we will be thinking ahead to get 2 new motors, because these are old. But we did invest a bit, maybe $3,000 last year in repairing them, so if I can squeeze another year out of them, I will, and we'll encumber the money so that we'll have it. So I did put a couple other things in there that Dan did not, and I know very well that Dan's trying, always with the best interest of the town and trying to keep our budgets down, but I'm here to also advocate for our department and the fact that through nobody's fault, it has been kind of, I'd just say, overlooked and not advocated for in the past. And being on the job now a little over a year, I have identified deficiencies. And some of that is based with some of what's going on with our full-time staff and some responsibility changes that I want to make, but I will work through another process, not through the budgeting process for that. And then the one thing that is a capital investment project that I feel that the Shellfish Department needs now is a new truck. So we currently have 2 trucks, and we got 1 this year. And when we are going great guns in the summertime, we actually need 3 trucks, because you have 1 dedicated to propagation and usually 1 dedicated to South Patrol from Indian Neck to the north of Lieutenant Island, and one dedicated to North Patrol from the inside of, or from Indian Neck north around to the Herring River. Because of Vibrio and the 2-hour exposure time, we do it, but it's really hard to do in one truck. In addition, there's days, many days when our rec patrol person had to use their own car, which is fine, but because you're not going off roads with it. But when our trucks go into the shop, I mean, I've used my car plenty of days this fall, as have Johnny and Chris, to do patrol. And I just don't think it's right. We can't go off roads with our own vehicles, but they get a little trashed on some of the roads anyway. I don't really want to put my own personal vehicle through that. We could use the extra truck, and I had spoken with Mark Vincent about it when I put together the plan earlier this year. And I spoke with him again today just to make sure that we come up with like a rotation plan, which Dan had suggested. Why don't we look at, how many years are you going to replace trucks so that we know and we can plan ahead for it. But right now I'm asking for an additional, because there's 3 of us in the department and 4 in the summer, and we need to be able to get around and on the flats. I'm happy to explore other solutions, but we are also responsible for shell fishermen's safety on the flats. And, not a month goes by that we are not towing somebody out in the sand. They get stuck in the sand or the mud. So I do believe that investing in a new truck at this time would be great, and then we can get on a 5-year plan for our trucks. They're 2016, 2018, and 2020, so they're 2 years apart, and we can maybe work that into, say, a 5-year plan, which is what both Chatham and Barnstable have. Dan he's been a great mentor to me in this process. So, looking at a 5-year plan for our trucks and then being able to move forward like that so you can plan for it.
So with the success of the shellfish industry and the expansion and new employee and new equipment, I get that it's always going to be need replacing. Do you feel you should raise some fees to have some more income coming in?
So I'm glad you brought that up. The way that I'm looking at it is, part of the way that I would like to move forward is, again, I'm doing a lot of comparisons with top shellfish producing towns on Cape Cod and where we kind of fall. So one thing that other towns have that I have brought up to Dan, Shellfish Advisory has also approved it, and that's creating a revolving fund. So we would take a percentage of fees collected and dedicate it into a propagation fund. It can only be used for propagation. So it is a loss to the general fund when we need to move money as a town from the shellfish fund to operating expenses, but it also means that my propagation budget isn't going to be drawing from the general fund anymore. So I would say that once we can get the revolving fund, and that will also need to get your approval and town meeting approval to create, but if we can do a propagation fund, then I would say it would be time we could ask for an increase in fees, and when people understand it's going into propagation, both Chatham, Barnstable, Falmouth, they've all said it's never a problem because people know that it's going for their future, either bottom line or fun, enjoyment.
Yeah. And either of you guys, somebody had their hand up?
Yeah, I did.
No, okay.
Couple things. So you're aware of a really good policy that actually Dennis jump-started when he was on the FinCom, Dennis Murphy. It's the vehicle rollover policy.
Yes, yep.
Yes,
And I worked on that, I think, with Mark when I first put the capital investment plan together.
So this idea of another vehicle has to be digested through that.
I think I might have even done the paperwork for it. I'll
Okay,
have
good.
to look.
Just,
Yep.
better to say that and have you say you already know about it. Then, okay. Second thing, doesn't the Shellfish Department still have one of those little things that it's like a bicycle for the, what's it called?
No, we have an off-road four-wheeler. We have a four-wheeler
Yeah.
that could be used at Indian Neck.
Yes.
on the beach. Yep.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, you can't take it on the highway to get to Indian Neck.
Right.
It has to be gotten to Indian Neck.
Right.
So you're still maintaining that and using it.
Yes, it's in the,
Okay.
it used to be in our old, it used to be in the Shellfish Shack, and now it's at the Harbor Master's office.
And it's in good working order.
I don't know about that. We haven't used it yet, so.
You mean this year?
We haven't used it since I started.
Why is that?
Because I think it was about getting me up to speed, and we had a new person on, and just it didn't become a priority. But it's worth looking into. I just haven't.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper than running a whole truck.
Right, but it's only for, it would only be for Indian Neck Rec area on Wednesdays and Sundays, and it would probably
Gee,
stay
I
over there.
remember seeing Chris using it up the Herring River area, but never mind, that's another story. That's
Well,
your
like you
thing.
say, you can't take it on the road, I don't think, so.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I would like to just, so when I said 1 million oysters and 1 million clams, this year, to put it in context, we did we did about 350,000 quahogs and 300,000 oysters. And back in 2005, so as Chris and Johnny and I sat around today and talked about this kind of vision, we came up with those numbers as doable. And then I went and I looked back at annual reports for the Shellfish Department, and in 2005, and I think in 2006 as well, 1.5 million quahogs and 1 million oysters this town propagated. So I feel like we should get back to our heyday. And in those years, Indian Neck had, on like July 4th week, more than 200 people fishing
Yeah, I remember.
each of those days.
I remember that.
And we had 65 on our top day this year. So there's so much room for growth to get back to where we were. And with that growth will come an increase in fees. And with that growth will come some necessities like perhaps staff and certainly some sort of nursery. But I really do see such hope for, you know, profitable fisheries for the fishing community and wonderful family experiences for our visitors. I'm so motivated and enthusiastic to bring that to fruition.
I love Nancy's excitement and
Yeah.
enthusiasm. It's great to watch but I do have a question for you. Will the market bear that
Oh, yeah.
many more?
Yeah, yeah, well,
That's a good question.
I think it will.
In the summertime, yeah. When you get into the fall, it tends, every oyster is reaching 3 inches, or the petites now for the aquaculture, you know, they've done all their growing. There tends to be a glut and a market turndown in the fall. And I just came from a meeting last week at Barnstable County where they joined forces with SPAT and the Fishermen's Alliance, and they did a whole market research program. So, and SPAT also, I know, is going to be investing into a marketing campaign to market oysters at that time of year. So I feel like there's other entities coming into play that will help solve that problem or mitigate a bit that problem of the glut. But, you know, in the winter, it seems like there's never enough oysters. So if you have a prolific wild oyster fishery, feeding that seems to be a good time. People need them in the spring, in the winter and the spring. So I think, you know, I would feel positive about that. And certainly if we were doing it a decade ago or more, and now we have this incredible oyster renaissance going on, then I think that the market could bear it.
Helen?
Oh, well,
Oh, okay.
I've spoken, so.
Madam Chair, through you, I think that idea of a truck is a pretty modest request. Certainly, I picked up on your public safety comment for the shellfishermen out there and the need to give a tow. It's always discouraging to be stuck in the mud, and the vehicles are valuable to the shell fishermen. I have a second question because the truck was coming into the question of compliance. How do you feel in general about compliances going in the commercial, commercial fishermen?
So this is something that I'll circulate this little one-page memo to you, but one of the things that we kind of started with is that when you have better fishing, you have better compliance. So when the fishing is good, there's no need to take a small oyster. And the fishing, we've been blessed this year. We've had very good fishing. It's also 5 years with the new Vibrio management plan. So, there's a lot of, people are getting used to it. They know. Yes, there's some problems. There's problems with, wild fishermen and with grant holders, and we just work really closely. It's a lot to do. So, we're patient and in our education, we try and take the time, but I would say, last year we had 2 cases, this year 0 cases of single source Vibrio, so we're moving in the right direction, our fishermen are moving in the right direction.
Well, the reason that I'm asking you is it's my observation you're building a lot of community and your town crier and your different forms of communication. So I guess it would be my hope that you're getting a lot of good cooperation from the shellfish community. It's an independent bunch, but I think they do have a self-interest, and it's an honorable community. So,
well, I'll tell you, the reason I know that we have support, not only because of the interactions that I have with people, but we probably got 150,000 oyster seed donated to us this fall, and 160 bushels of a marketable product were given by grant holders where it had gotten away from them. I think I might have talked about this before, but those donations that we were able to put directly out into the harbor, and well, the market product went into the harbor. The seed is on our bed, and we're going to pit it, and so it's out there just waiting for the last minute to take it off the flats, which we have an AmeriCorps Day on January 3rd.
Oh, great.
Help us.
Kathleen?
I just want to thank Nancy for, I think this is your first budget presentation? Your second. First.
Second.
Congratulations. I'm always going to support the budget for the shell fishing department because it's Wellfleet's industry. It is an economic engine for this town. And I want to, commend you on your enthusiasm. So I'll hate to put this out here, but, the elephant in the room is we've got to get the harbor dredged. We really do. Our shell fishing industry is going to be hanging in a...
Yep. I'm now on the dredging task force.
So, obviously I support this budget and the truck, and, we have to get the bigger picture here fixed too, so.
Go ahead, sorry.
So question, now, this is me being horrible, which is, so people get stuck in the mud, and sometimes they get stuck in the mud because we need to be dredged. And sometimes they get stuck in the mud because they've been careless, but never mind. Does the shellfish department charge a little fee when you get towing somebody out?
No way.
Okay,
No.
I'm just putting that out there because I'm tough about it. Because sometimes I do know that people get stuck because they're negligent. I've heard plenty of stories, and...
Yeah, I just...
give me your opinion, I want to know.
We are also public safety officers, so just like...
There you go.
Yeah, we just, the most important thing is that we are servicing and making sure everybody's safe. That's just not something...
Even if they've done something really obviously
But, yeah.
stupid.
Okay,
Well,
we get
yeah.
the point.
Yep.
Don't we all hope someone will help us when we've done something really
It's like
stupid?
cars park in the opposite direction on Main Street.
It's like calling the police and they charge you to come to your house.
Okay, any
So-
other questions?
No, but I have 2 things that I want to
Okay.
just, so we moved to there's 2 budget items that I would like you to think about, and You don't need to make a decision tonight, or you can make a decision. But there's two things that were not included in the budget that you have in front of you that I thought of later. One is we moved to a new software system to input the data for printing permits. And we invested it with the DPW and the beach department, all three of us. Jeannie Mack does it in town hall, and she's impeccable with it. Once summer hits, it moves down to the beach department, and they get sold down there. And the experience I had this year is that when you have a lot of different people making data entry, there's a lot of errors. So I have so many emails got returned to me, and the whole thing of collecting email addresses was so that I could let especially the rec people know you can't fish. And we did have closure this summer, rain closure. So I take it very seriously. And in speaking with Suzanne, we thought that perhaps we could take one employee there and dedicate that employee to be the shellfish person.
Makes sense.
But in order to do that, with all the extra data entry that this person does, give them an incentive with a couple of extra dollars an hour. So when I built that in, it turned into about $1,100 extra. And, you know, this is stuff that I have to, I'm just putting it out there for consideration. And, you know, obviously I have to work with Dan on it too, because he manages the bigger budget. The other thing was that our office is a Marina Enterprises Fund building, and we pay rent to the Marina Enterprise Fund. And we don't get cleaned. And we always think we're going to have time to hunker down and clean our facility. And we just have many other things that take up our time. In no way do I expect Mike or Will to come over and clean it. So in the summer, the beach department has cleaners that come in. And so I thought, well, maybe in the 10 months, I could have some cleaners come in and do it. But that might add another $750. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
Janet?
Helen?
So I asked a question at the Shellfish Committee meeting, and it was clarified that all the other departments get their places cleaned.
Yep.
And the other thing is, and that seems reasonable to have somebody come in once a month. I'm sure you do the bathrooms yourselves when you needed to. But that doesn't seem like a frill to me, given that all the other departments have that. And the other thing I wanted to say about the full-time position, our brand is so important, and the enforcement and inspection and so on and so forth, that has resulted this year that, you know, and the powers that be, who knows, good luck, no Vibrio, you know, incident. That's huge. We need to keep that up. We need to have Wellfleet oysters be known to be really safe. And if you think that a full-time employee can help with that, I'm all for it.
Well, couldn't they clean the office too?
You work out that contract.
So, and right now, we're just talking seasonal. And then
No,
kind of
that's
that
what I-
long view, I'll work with Dan to create something more in terms of a long-term planning document.
I misspoke. I meant full-time seasonal.
Okay, just, I wanted
Right.
to make sure.
Yeah. No, right, not all year.
You know, I will say a couple of other things is that when I started, there were 2 full-time draggers in the harbor, and as of last Monday, there's now 9. So boat patrol happens at high and low tide, and we have to be around to be monitoring. We don't have a good grasp of the boat harvesting. We do our best, but since they bring in a lot more, their limits are much higher than the pickers, let's call them. You know, it's an obligation. We need to be monitoring that more, and we're doing our best. And I don't feel like we're slacking, thank you. But we certainly could do better. And it was a true eye-opener to see, you know, just how much, I think it's 80,000 oysters came off of Indian Neck Rec area this summer. That's about $200,000 worth of product on a raw bar plate. So to be able to capture that information because we had somebody dedicated, we need to be doing that with our boat patrol too. We need to be able to understand. We need to know how much money the town is investing into propagation and enforcement and knowing what's coming out of our harbor.
Good. Bob, do you have any questions or comments?
Couple. I've had a long conversation with Nancy recently. I give her an A+ across the board for everything she's doing, her foresight, her projections. But as I told her, it's all about balance. And if you pull back and look at the industry. Right now, I'm surrounded by people in South Wellfleet that have thousands of bags ready for market, and there's no market. We've hit a saturation point.
Yeah.
Plymouth, Barnstable, Orleans, Wellfleet, Duxbury, people put in 500,000 animals. Well, I sold those, I'll put in 1 million. I knew it was going to happen. In the summer, it's not a problem. Off-season, it's a problem. So at what point does the town of Wellfleet want to get in to compete with the private sector? And you can get to a point where there's so much stuff right now, it got down to 30 cents an oyster. And I'm not beating you up. I'm giving you the reality of
I know
what's on the
this.
ground.
Yep.
I'm getting 65, 70, 80 cents in the summer. People are getting 60 cents in the summer. Now it's 25, 30, 35 cents. It's all about the balance of, well, Mother Nature can put 10 million oysters like that. Boom. With a culture barge, the amount of culture she puts out, and everyone in North Wellfleet, there's so many oysters growing that put out a spat. One female puts out 250 million eggs. So you do the math of what's the potential. And, just buying oysters from a hatchery versus putting shells out. So I disagree with some of her ideas as far as the amount of money invested by the town to get to X or 2X or 10X. The barge would be a great addition. So having a barge, don't even think about an upweller. You have a barge, you don't need an upweller. If you've read Shucked, which is the Duxbury's experience, full-time employee for an upwelling system. 8 hours a day. So, you could build, and I tried, an empire. I'm not beating you up. You're doing just what I would have done, and I tried. I had my own truck. I finally got a skiff. I got 25 cents a mile for a Carmen Ghia. And that was a patrol at the time. And the deputy got 25 cents a mile, used his own truck to patrol. So, and that was a step above Tony Oliver getting $25 a year for being the shellfish constable. Right. So, at what point does the town get their investment back? And whenever I put stuff when I was a warden out there, I could justify getting the licenses up because there was money to be made out there, and they didn't complain. I've heard stories of Indian Neck, the recreational area. They get a peck in about 15 minutes of oysters. It's loaded. So, are you going to get another $50,000 worth of license fees to justify. I'm just saying, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
So there's the overview. But A+, so.
Great.
May I say something? Is it okay?
You've already said a lot.
I have.
No, yes, you can, yes.
I will just say that part of what I learned at this, this was at a different marketing, some other marketing research that SPAT had done. And, you know, you're saying about the town putting itself in competition with the private sector, but what they discovered in their market research is that wild Wellfleet oysters don't compete with farm-raised, that they are a separate, almost line item, a separate line that it has its own unique pull, I guess, into markets. And you know, I feel a certain responsibility to maintain a prolific wild fishery because it is historical here and it does provide year-round jobs. So I don't want to be doing something that's going to be competing with, you know, the 134 leaseholders either. I mean, I want us all to succeed, and I'll work to make sure that that happens.
No, I understand that, but also the wholesalers, the buyers, can kind of jerk the guys on the flats
Right.
around because why should they pay anything but the least amount?
Yeah, they are.
And they are.
True,
But-
but it's going to take some farmer to say no, right? Or so
No,
it's
well-
it's not coming, that price
farmer,
decrease
it's the
is-
wild guy.
It's not. The market research is showing that it's the farmers who have the most product. I mean, the
I know that.
the wild guys, they
The
only
wild
have,
guys are the ones suffering because of the amount of product that the farmer has.
because he has to get rid of it at 30 cents, because otherwise he's going to have to pit it, and if he doesn't have a place to put it, then it's going to risk Mother Nature and ice.
Water seeks its own level.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered why we don't have, like, the town of Wellfleet at the pier, and I know behind Max you can buy oysters in the summer. I don't think you can, I'm sure they're closed, but why don't we have an oyster store, you know, where you're here for the weekend, you're going to go up to somebody's house outside of Boston, and you want to bring a couple dozen oysters, and why don't we as a town just have it right at the pier where people know, and I know that there's certain health regulations and all
So
that.
many liability issues with that, Jan.
Yeah,
You mean
I
the
don't
town
know.
run it?
Goodness,
Well,
I
it's the
can't
same
even.
with any store, like if there's a place down there where you could, there's no place, is there any place in town to buy oysters for somebody
Yeah.
driving through town? Where?
Hatches and Max, they
No,
both do.
now, this
Wellfleet
time of year.
Marina,
This
yeah.
time of year.
Yeah,
Oh,
Wellfleet Marina still has, they're not
Yeah.
open, are they?
Alfred still has oysters, yeah.
Okay. Do people know that? I mean, I don't know. People will ask me, where do you buy oysters? And, you know.
Jimmy
I usually
Rose,
say enjoy them in
Chopper.
a,
well,
Excuse me, what?
You're not supposed to.
I usually say enjoy them in a restaurant. I mean,
Yes.
that's
No,
what
I'm
we
just
have
saying,
right
if you
now.
want to buy, if you want to buy some for yourself, to bring home or to bring somewhere.
You want to sell
Yeah.
them a license so they can go get it themselves.
Yeah, or respectfully?
Yeah.
Yeah, having the town sell its own oysters, as Kathleen said, liability, you'd have to pay somebody to do it, you'd have to have a
Right.
premises. We
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do that, or we really wouldn't. Because, in my opinion, I want our local businesses to be able to do that. That's the other thing. I want them to
Yeah.
prosper. And, hey, guys, in the winter, I drive to Orleans and I go to the fish market right off the,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
just saying.
Rotary,
why
and
is
they
it-
have Wellfleet
Yeah.
oysters.
Yeah, but Wellfleet should have Wellfleet oysters.
What we do in the summer.
Okay, well.
Wearing black dog T-shirts. It doesn't work that way, Jan.
Madam Chair, I
I
think
don't-
before,
Yeah, okay,
to
go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
I actually don't think that, I'm an entrepreneur by background, and I think it's really important not to crush ideas before they even start. And I think that the shellfishing community is, as Bob pointed out, really facing some serious issues. The oysters going down to 30 cents is really a calamity for the community. And yes, there's a strong demand in the summer, but we're seeing,
A glut.
Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but number one, more markets have come in, and number two, the business has changed in that you can buy 1 million oyster seeds. So people are doing that, of course. And I think that as a town that is talking about our largest industry a lot, that we ought to think outside the box like Janet just did. We're not going to solve it tonight, but it's a great seed to start.
Well, one revenue stream may be to get a grant to get an ice machine and then sell the ice. You can get a saltwater machine on the pier. I have my own ice machine.
Do you, huh?
Oh, yeah, anyone that's in the business has it. That was $4,200, and then the cost of maintaining it, but that's just what is necessary to
Be in the business.
be in the business in the summer. And there was talk about it, and they do have saltwater machines similar to what's on a boat offshore. And whether that's, more cost-effective to run or, but you could make and put the money into the department.
Yeah.
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 And also you're making sure, because people are going to Cumbies and buying $2 bags,
I
like
thought
40 of them a day.
We don't have
I
an ice-
thought we
It was one of
agreed to
Yeah.
buy one.
Yeah, it was one of my goals. It keeps coming up. The first time it came up in the Shellfish Committee was a few years ago. And, by the way, the saltwater ice machine, it's better for the shellfish for a number of reasons.
Sure.
I'm not going into them because I talk too much.
And Dan has approached both Mike and I about this idea, and we did bring it up again when we were talking about 3 Kendrick. So it's on our radar.
Let's just do it. I mean, what are we waiting for? How much can it cost? How much can it cost?
I'm sure
I'll
the
put that
state
into my
has,
5-year plan.
No, I mean,
Get a
excuse
grant.
me,
We've
let's do
talked
it
about
this summer.
For 3 years, yeah.
No, it's been talked about for
Long
5 or
time.
6 or 7 years by the Shellfish Committee. And we have a Vibrio situation, and surely there's grant money out there.
Yes.
Can we just do it? Can we just have it be a warrant article if we're not going to get a grant for it?
the Department of Agriculture had grant money
Yeah, we should look into a
for
grant.
ice machines and coolers. So that's Department of Ag, and I'm sure Marine Fisheries or somebody, there's money for exactly that, or there used to be. So,
And then we just have to figure out, all the logistics of staffing it and
So
taking payments.
through you, Janet, I have to say, the first time this came up, Shellfish Committee, somebody discussed it in an official way with the marina, and the harbor master said they would be willing to do it. That was a while ago. Maybe they're not still willing. But they were very clear that they were willing to do it. You have to pay for the ice, but
yeah, well, that's how you'd make the money.
Yeah, so I think this whole board in the town would, it's definitely behind getting one of those, so, and it would be important. And I think it would be fairly easy, right? I mean, it's just an ice machine,
You'd have to get a good size one to.
yeah.
But to wrap up my reflection of this, I applaud her enthusiasm. I think
Yes.
she's getting a little ahead of herself.
Okay.
A new truck, you don't even have enough bodies to drive 3 trucks. And also, the harbor master has a lease, $10,000 a year of their trucks, 4-wheel drive, and then they give them back. Or they own them for 40 grand.
Yeah.
So it's $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
4-wheel drive, V8s. So
Well, I was wondering if the DPW or another department has a truck that's getting only that can be, driven in salt water and be a bit more abused, a little bit older, not new, but,
We'll come back to you
yeah.
with the
Yeah,
information on the truck.
you'll put that all together.
also, I think is a 5 or 10-year plan to utilize the South Wellfleet Fire Department besides storage for vehicles or whatever they got down there.
Salt. Could put salt,
I rest my case.
salt,
That's
yeah.
more centrally
yeah,
located,
storage, yeah.
equal distance between Lieutenant's Island and Indian Neck. And, you don't have to look at the beach. You can also have the office at the beach, but having your maintenance and you know, and you can put an addition on it.
Yeah.
Johnny covets that building.
Everybody in town
Perfect. It's
covers that
perfect.
building.
Right
Yeah.
down the street to Blackfish
Wharf
Creek.
Road, yeah.
So,
Uh,
I've said too much.
Yeah, no, that's a good, that, incorporate that into your plans. That's a good idea. Okay, anything else?
So if you were in agreement, and I would support this, of the idea of hiring somebody at an extra $2 an hour to do data entry for the shellfish permitting process, and the $750 for cleaning in of the office, if you wanted to move that, then you could move to approve the shellfish budget in the amount of $241,673 as amended.
But what about that truck?
The truck is in the
It's-
capital
yeah.
improvement plan, so we will bring that forward when we bring forward all of the capital
budget.
improvement items.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. It's a thing, it's not.
It's a, yeah,
It's capital
Equipment,
improvement because it
yeah.
depreciates.
okay, so, does anybody want to make a motion
What he said, no.
to approve to approve the shellfish budget for
Move to approve the
2019?
179 shellfish budget in the amount of $241,673 as amended.
673, okay.
I move to approve the shellfish budget, 179 shellfish budget, as described just now by the town administrator.
Second.
As amended.
All in favor? Okay.
Would you please put your words into the minutes?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Yeah.
We always do, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
my
good.
battery just ran down.
Okay, I think so.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for waiting.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Bob.
Nancy.
Mr. Wallace, since you're in your official position here, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for
And all your
showing up.
input. It's really good.
That was great,
And
Bob.
thanks for the conversations.
No,
You know, it's about a balance.
yeah, we
We'll get
agree.
there eventually.
We are Wellfleet, we like balance.
And I also spoke to her about the clam situation, and I had a 70% die-off from neoplasia on my bin.
This year?
Uh,
So Woods Hole has put 3 plots next to the epicenter for mortality of 3 different hatcheries to see which ones are going to survive or won't survive, to see if there's any natural resistances. But that's a thing. So you want 1 million clams, think about it.
That's like a 5-year plan. It's not like next year. So we might
And
do
maybe they'll figure it out.
incremental increases.
Yeah.
My dears,
So
can
let me
you
just
speak
ask
into
you,
the
that's-
microphones, please? Because
My
what-
dears, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
So moved.
Yeah, okay.
So enthusiastically moved.
All in
Bob,
favor?
let me ask you, that's not the first time that's happened with the clams, has it?
Wait, we have to vote.
All, yeah,
Adjourned at 9:05.
all in favor?
It's happened
Thank
before,
you.
right?
QPS.
Yeah,
Motions, but that's rarely said again.
yeah.
Big mortality.
Yeah.
I'm saying 4 to 5 years. And I have stats from last year, the thumbnail size in the spring is 3.5 inches. Wait, that's 1 year versus 4.5 years. 30 cents versus 65 cents.